birth movies down.
Today's episode of Shockwaves is brought to you by Shudder. Brought to you by the AMC Network, Shudder is not only a premium streaming video service, but an experience unlike any other. Created for fans of all degrees of thrillers, suspense, and horror, Shudder is the home to the largest and fastest-growing human-curated selection of high-quality, spine-tingling, and provocative films, TV series, and originals. There's always something new and unexpected for Shudder members to explore. Premiering on Shudder this week is Dead Shack, a cabin-in-the-woods horror comedy straight out of the 1980s. While staying at a rundown cabin in the woods, three foul-mouthed kids must save their parents from a neighbor who intends to feed them to her undead family. Dead Shack is the type of rousing, rebellious, crowd-pleasing horror comedy. Those who casually delight in kids teaming up against supernatural odds will eat it up, slapping its own bloody print on the kids versus creatures subgenre. Praised as a scrappy Sam Raimi-esque vision by Slash Film, Dead Shack is now streaming on Shudder. Shudder is available for $4.99 a month or $49.99 with an annual membership. But our listeners can get a free month by entering promo code SHOCK at checkout. Again, that's promo code SHOCK at checkout. Go to Shudder.com today to find the best collection of thrillers, suspense, and horror available to stream anywhere.
Tonight's episode is also brought to you by Fright Rags. Fright Rags is the #1 source for horror t-shirts with specially curated collections created by renowned horror artists. They offer the best art and the best quality anywhere. New this week at Fright Rags, they have just brought back a ton of previously retired designs back in stock, including Evil Dead, Creepshow, The Thing, Silence of the Lambs, and more. Also new, the officially licensed Bela Lugosi collection, which includes t-shirts, socks, and enamel pins. Also, they now have both a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre collection and a Child's Play collection. So head over to www.fright-rags.com now. You can enter the code SHOCK0118 at checkout to get 10% off your entire order. Again, that's SHOCK0118. Head over to www.fright-rags.com. And guess what? The Shockwaves team is headed back to Texas Frightmare this May, and we hope to see you all there. Texas Frightmare is the Southwest Premier Horror Convention, and it's now celebrating their 13th year. They always have the best guests, the best panels, which will be moderated by us, Shockwaves.
Good team, Shockwaves.
And you don't want to miss out. Just announced today, Texas Frightmare will be showing a sneak preview of Arrow's recently restored Last House on the Left release. That's the original Wes Craven movie, getting its due. And they have cast members Jeremy Rain and Mark Scheffler on hand as guests. Other guests include Clive Barker, several of the Cenobites, including Doug Bradley, all of the kids from It's Losers Club, Tobin Bell, Shawnee Smith, Ron Perlman, Charlie Band, Brad Dourif, Katie Featherstone, and many more. Head to www.texasfrightmareweekend.com and get your tickets now. Okay, and welcome to episode number 85 of Shockwaves. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Galluzzo. Back after Rebekah McKendry took over.
Sup,
kicked
girls'
the boys
night.
out.
Yeah.
It was a great episode. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing it.
And it was kind of fun to just listen in and not have like anything to do with it other than just listen as a fan.
It was definitely a hectic night for me because I showed up and I was literally like the only one here. And then I'm staring at a box of equipment going, I don't really know what to do. But I made it work.
Do you appreciate me now?
Yes.
Since I'm the one that sets up and breaks everything down every week.
Galuzzo.
And shout out to Ernie, who's going to get 2 shout outs today, right now. And also on Skype, Mr. Elric Kane is with us.
Yeah, I'm just rapping on Halloween. I know it's been a while.
No, not you. It's the other guy that did that.
So I'm just
funny.
sick. That's nowhere near as exciting.
Well, you know what's depressing to me is Elric was happy that Bekah was taking over last week's show because he was going to have a date night out for Valentine's Day. And I texted you and I said, "How's date night, Elric?" And you're like, "My wife's sick. It's canceled." So
Yeah.
I kind of
missed it all for
and
nothing.
kids. I knew this was inevitable.
It was it's like The Thing. I think it's a great analogy. Like when a couple people in your house get the flu and you're trying to avoid it, you're sleeping in different rooms and slowly the next person gets it. Then you don't know who still has it and eventually you are fucked.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad you could join us remotely. Ryan is back. He's wrapped Halloween, which is exciting. But he needs a break. He'll be back next week for sure.
Everyone back next week.
But everyone's back next week officially. But we have a special guest on top of our special guest.
Yeah, we have actually 3 special guests tonight. But we're going to kick off with the first one, and then we'll bring another special guest in when we talk about what we've seen this week, and then a third special
You got
guest.
it? Do you have it all worked out now?
Yeah.
That's a lot. All right, that's the
There's
itinerary.
a lot of cool stuff going on.
But this first one, Bekah, I'll let you introduce because you know him and you knew way more about this than I did when they announced it last week. But I know our listeners and a lot of horror fans are excited by the resurrection of Fangoria.
Yes, and so I would like to welcome Dallas Sonnier.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Dallas, I know Dallas as a film producer because you produced Craig Zoller's film, The Cell Block, and you did Bone Tomahawk. And
Great fucking movie.
Damn
Got to put that out there right now.
It really is a great
Two of my
movie.
favorites of the last couple of years.
And you've got The Puppet Master coming up.
That's right. Yeah, predominantly a movie producer. Was in Los Angeles for 16 years. Moved to Texas 3 years ago to just get out of the system and try something different and raise my family out there. Always been into horror films and stuff like that. And actually, the success of Bone Tomahawk allowed me to feel comfortable enough to move away. So I moved back to Texas, started a company, and got a crazy idea one day that I should go and try to buy Fangoria.
Oh, man.
Which is pretty damn crazy at the time. Yeah,
I'm not in the magazine publishing business. I don't know anything about it, but I love horror movies and grew up on them, and figured that it was a really big opportunity. And so I cold called the previous owner and basically spent 6 to 9 months courting him. It was the craziest process ever, but it worked out. And,
Thankfully.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like everything is working out the way it should be.
Right. And I mean, this is a magazine that is, I mean, it's my generation's famous monsters.
Yes.
I always hear the Masters of Horror guys talk about that, but no, for me it was Fangoria. This was
Right.
the mag I grew up on, and it didn't feel right that it wasn't in print at the moment. There was something weird about that. But I want to ask, I mean, you just said it was a lengthy process. I mean, was there any trepidation whatsoever about resurrecting this brand? Because look, they had a lot of, it's no secret they had a lot of financial problems with subscribers, with the writers towards the end. And so basically, you're not only buying Fangoria and taking it over, you're taking over their debt and problems.
Yes, sort of.
So that's a lot to really take in at once.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of get past that and realize it was going to be worth it?
Well, so we tackled it head on. We put out a letter as part of our relaunch stating that anyone who got screwed over by a previous owner on any subscription, didn't matter. Don't worry about your receipt. Don't worry about how many how many issues you had left in your subscription. We're going to give you a free year, sight unseen.
Beautiful.
It's on the honor system. It's good for the community. Let's bring you back into the family and do it all together. And so that was really important. That's something that I decided pretty early on that we needed to do. But yeah, the previous owner, he ran it into the ground. I mean, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
It's really sad, and I think that he tried really hard, but he made a lot of mistakes, and ultimately it was an opportunity for us to come in and infuse some new blood into the company and take it over. And honestly, we wouldn't have had that opportunity if he didn't get to the place where he was. So a lot of this is a redemption tour. A lot of this is, proving to people that our hearts are in the right place and that we're going to be good stewards of the brand and that we're going to print the magazine. I mean, that at the end of the day is the most important thing. We're going to print a physical magazine. It is going to be a quarterly. It will be a collector's item. It will be a deluxe issue. We're certainly going to keep the logo old school, and we're going to have the film strip and all that fun stuff.
Oh, nice.
We're not going to screw with the legendary stuff, but we are going to improve upon some things. We are going to modernize the magazine in many ways. But the most important thing is we are going back to a special analog experience where the hope, to sort of put it into perspective, the hope is that you get the magazine on a Wednesday or Thursday in the mail and you put it aside and you really think about it all week and you're just so ready for Saturday morning to roll around. You get your coffee, you open up the magazine, and you spend 2 or 3 hours with it. That's the experience we're looking to create.
And I'm excited to say that they have brought back some of the original players, and myself included in that. So I'm excited to be a part of the whole new adventure.
Well, I had 2 or 3 print articles in Fangoria. I'm just throwing that out there.
Nice.
Right now.
He did. Rob was good.
I was there for a little bit.
Yeah.
But so why? I mean, I'm probably going to answer my own question. Why quarterly? Is it? I mean, now in today's day and age, because of the way the web has reinterpreted horror and all that. Fangoria to me was always quality over quantity. So I'm assuming that the reason to do 4 a year is to concentrate more on a higher quality version of it.
That's absolutely correct. I felt comfortable knowing that we could deliver 4 amazing issues a year. We did not want to get involved in the daily news cycle, and we aren't going to review films. So no reviews, no daily news. We'll use social media to engage on some of those fronts, but really for the magazine, it'll be long-form analysis, commentary, really thoughtful pieces. We might include some fiction, which could be really interesting. And
the teletype? No, just that was one of my favorite things because none of those would actually come true, because it was so far in advance.
Yeah.
But we're also, we wanted to bring back the legendary contributors, certainly Gen Gold and Tim Pone, and this lovely lady here. But also we are going to bring in some new voices. We have some ideas of some really interesting out of the box contributor ideas that will attract an audience that maybe hasn't even heard of Fangoria before.
Right. And what about the editor-in-chief? How did you land on Phil Noble Jr.?
Yes.
Who's at birthmoviesdeath.com.
Yes.
How did you land? I mean, that's for anybody that grew up on horror magazines, it's the coveted gig.
Yeah. I made a list of a few people, and it was important to me that the person was not previously was a new member of the team to lead the charge. I wanted to find someone who I believed was a great writer, but also could be the face of the brand. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm the business side of things, and I'm going to produce many movies. But really, I wanted someone as the magazine to be the face of the magazine. So I made a list of 5 people. I called all 5 of them within a 24-hour period. The 4 that couldn't do the job all recommended the 5th person, which was Phil Noble Jr.
That's great.
Wow.
And so I knew I had the right person.
Yeah.
And Phil had been a fan of Bone Tomahawk, a fan of Brawl and Cell Block 99. I am a huge fan of Birth Movies Death. I think they have been through their own challenges lately, but I think as a content site, they have amazing writers and things like that. So, all of their extracurricular activities aside, I think the website itself is incredible. Mm-hmm. And Phil's always been a big one of my favorite film writers. And so he's getting some flack online because he's super into James Bond, and so everyone's asking when's the Fangoria issue of James Bond. No, but he's a huge horror fan, and Fangoria was a big part of his childhood.
That's terrific.
Awesome.
Yeah, this was just the best news for me because I was at Fangoria for like 11, 12 years, and to watch it just kind of I was literally there until the wheels fell off.
Yeah.
And it crushed me, and I still have all of our old convention stuff in my garage. And I kept everything just because I was like, someday it will be back. And so, yeah, when I got a call from Dallas, it lightened my whole year.
Well, the funny thing was when you and I were doing our panel together at the Texas Frightmare, which, by the way, is one of my favorite conventions. It is so incredible. I'm biased because it's in my hometown, but when Rebekah was hosting the Puppet Master panel for me,
which is where Udo Kier gave me a back rub.
That's right. I was already in negotiations, and it was so hard not to tell you and to keep a secret. I'm so bad at keeping a secret, but I did on this.
That was really good.
Yeah.
No clue. So.
Excellent. And you're aiming for Halloween this year as the first issue.
Yes.
The first launch. That's great.
I won't tell you what the initial cover is going to be, but if you had one guess, I'm sure you can figure it out.
I'm excited about it.
Well, cool, man. Anything else that you want to tell us about?
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
There's Kane.
It's hard on Skype because I don't want to intrude because I know it's
go ahead, please.
I was wondering about some of the
God.
ancillary things, like will Gore Zone or any of those kind of properties that kind of were related to Fangoria have another life under this?
Yeah, we did acquire Starlog and Gore Zone, and all of the ancillary trademarks, right? The Chainsaw Awards, anything like that.
Oh.
Naturally, we will take advantage of all of these assets over time, and of course, Starlog, would be a slam dunk in today's movie industry.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But we have to focus our resources one at a time and baby step this thing. So Fangoria is the focus for now, but certainly Starlog is number 2 and coming. I mean, it's coming soon.
Yeah, that's terrific. And Gore Zone always sold so well. It was definitely an acquired taste.
Yeah.
But I always liked writing for that because, I can't talk about the guinea pig films in the normal Fangoria, but over in Gore Zone, have at it.
Well, one of our contributors, Craig Zoller, who I work with a lot as a movie producer, who wrote and directed Bone Tomahawk and Brawl in Cell Block 99, he's going to focus his work, his contributions in Fangoria on stuff that probably would have existed in Gore Zone in the past.
That's terrific.
He's really going to focus on some really fringe, in a good way, horror films that maybe people haven't heard of and stuff like that.
Terrific. So,
well, he's true of his word because if you watch Brawl and Cell Block, my God,
yeah. Dude definitely has seen an
Gore Zone.
exploitation film or two.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well,
that's very cool. We appreciate you dropping by and giving us the first scoop on Fangoria, which is excellent. I do have to mention that you will be giving a much lengthier chat with our friends on the Movie Crypt, Adam Green and Joe Lynch. They'd mentioned to me that you'd be on that show while you're in town.
Yes.
I don't know when that's going to air, but it will be shortly after this. And so if you want to hear more from Dallas, in particular about the films and more about Fangoria, tune into the Movie Crypt.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to say this is such an honor to be able to take this brand and to revitalize it and bring it back. I don't own this thing. The fans do. The community does. And I mean that sincerely. Our heart's in the right place, and we're going to pour a lot of money into this and do it right.
Okay, and really quick, Dallas, before you go, can you tell us how people can get the magazine?
Sure. Go to Fangoria.com. We have a way to sign up for our email list. Also to send us any complaints. And also if you got stiffed on a previous subscription, let us know. But really, the idea is to email us, give us a heads up. Come be a part of our email group, and in a couple of weeks or months, we'll send you an email on how to sign up.
Thanks so much, Dallas.
Thank you, Dallas. Well, very cool. I'm excited to have Fangoria back, and I'm excited because we've seen a lot of stuff. So let us jump right in. I'll start. A double feature that I don't know why I just was so obsessed with this the second I got the Night of the Living Dead Criterion.
Does it look beautiful?
Well, I'm calling it now. It's the release of the year by far.
Wow.
Yeah, no, the new Night of the Living Dead. It's the 4K restoration is terrific. There's a work print version of it that's on there called Night of Anubis, which was just a joke. And they also the features are wonderful. They carted over some features, but they did a lot of new ones. There's a really great little documentary with Guillermo del Toro, Robert Rodriguez, and I'm forgetting the third filmmaker, but they had a bunch of filmmakers on the bonus features for one of the documentaries. And so this release is just terrific. And it was actually really fun to see everybody posting photos as soon as it arrived, including Ryan was on the set of Halloween, and he posted an empty hand, and he drew a little box on it like, I wish I had my Night of the Living Dead, which I thought was pretty hilarious. But yeah, so I did a double feature of the original Night of the Living Dead with Get Out, which I just felt like thematically, or they would work, and they did. It was a great fucking double feature.
Themes.
Yeah, it was really great to watch them both back to back and see 50 years apart, kind of. Just
how far we've come.
How far we've come, exactly, Elric.
Not far at all.
But no, it was great. I mean, look, Night of the Living Dead, everyone should, it's mandatory. You should absolutely own it because it's, especially now that George is no longer with us, it's just, the film is still just as powerful. This restoration not only looks good, but it was really cool, a really cool sound mix. Like I could actually hear, like, there was one scene where Dwayne Jones, who really, I mean, his performance still wows me every time. And it's such a shame that he never really got to, like, I'd heard he was kind of embarrassed by Night of the Living Dead. He never really talked about it. There's like one audio interview that exists of him. I wish he knew how pivotal not only his character was, but how influential that movie was for a lot of people and how much we regard him and his performance. But like there's a part where he's giving a speech and you could just hear the crickets going through all your speakers from outside. So it's just it's already my favorite release of the year. And what's funny is I'd only seen Get Out once. I saw it in theaters when it came out. So this is my second viewing of it. And what was really funny about watching this time, and I'm not going to give anything away because obviously we've talked about it a lot, but it was like, I mean, I loved it more the second time, but it almost played like a comedy the second time, whereas everything that was awkward and weird and kind of scary the first time you watch it because you don't know what's going on. When you know what's going on, it couldn't be more obvious. The second time, the way people are acting and what they're doing. So that's one of the beautiful magics of that movie is how it plays completely different on repeat viewings. Although I'm sad because
that means the second time you see it, you're seeing it like his friend character.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Because he sees through all of it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And so but it also now I miss not being able to get that first impression back. But it's great. I strongly recommend that as a double feature if you are so inclined. By the way, speaking of Get Out, subbing in for Ryan Turek today, who literally just snuck into the room, is one of the producers of that movie. Welcome to the show, finally, Couper Samuelson.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
I've heard tell that Couper listens every week. This is the first time we've gotten him on.
I don't always fast forward through the first part of it. So
that's
what
a wonderful compliment. Thank you.
Where else are you going to find out about your weird esoteric films from the 70s?
Here we go.
Let me tell you, I would like to get to the point where Couper is right now, and what I mean by that is where I don't have to set up and break down the equipment every show. He sits down. Someone came in and put hot tea in front of him, and it was amazing. I was like, wow, why don't I have that? Well, actually, I have some people who are willing.
Yeah. He makes us coffee every week.
He does because the coffee's strong. But anyway, welcome to the show, Couper. We really appreciate it.
I'm really excited to be here. I have been a long time listener. And I always curious when I walk by and it says recording in progress.
You always ask, who's on tonight?
Who's on tonight?
You get the sneak preview. And before we delve back into what we've seen this week, because I know you wanted to join on this, you picked our guest today, which was kind of fun.
My one of my all-time heroes, John Landis.
One of ours too.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is, sort of apropos of Get Out is that he was so amphibious, John, in making comedies and horror films and horror comedies, and it's so hard to move between the two idioms. Much as people say, "Oh, horror is like comedy; it's all about timing." It's like there's a totally kind of different tone that you have to strike. And John's, I mean, he just look at his IMDb, and it's sort of like going to a Billy Joel concert. You're like, oh, that was another hit of his.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
he wrote all that stuff.
Coming to America, that's amazing. And anyway, so he's a personal hero of mine. I'm really excited, and he's also. More importantly to this form, he's a first-class raconteur. So
he is. But the point is, you asked and he said yes, whereas anytime I've asked, he said no.
Yeah, we've asked.
So what did you do to get him here? Like, do you have a history?
I'm very flattered. Well, I've one of the things that's fun about low-budget movies is that we can express our fanship with opportunity. Mm-hmm. So, we can, if we're huge fans of Joe Johnston was like a cornerstone of my childhood, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and The Rocketeer. And we could just reach out to him and make a movie. We made this little movie called Not Safe for Work. That's on iTunes. It was a total delight to work on, and we can and again, it's rare to be able to express one's fanship with actual. Like a job, like a thing you can do. And so I've been trying to get John to direct a scary movie for a long time. So maybe
we're going to work on it right now. He's not on yet, so we're going to work on it.
We're going to work on it.
Okay. We'll help you. We'll help you out.
This is definitely the most jealous I've ever been. Stuck at home, sick.
Yeah.
Because John Landis, I think, is like, him and Joe Dante, I think he's also the sharpest horror mind and just comic
incredible.
mind. And
well, he wouldn't be here if Elric was here, so that was
the deal.
He wouldn't
too much
come.
personality.
It was like
He was
brown
like,
M&Ms, no Elric.
No Kane whatsoever.
He knows what's up.
And now that you mentioned that, you'd been wanting John to come make a movie, 1,000 websites just blew up.
Oh, yeah, there's a
Landis making Blumhouse film? Question mark.
All right, well, let's dive in. Elric, what did you see since it's been a couple of weeks since we talked to you?
Yeah, I'll jump in with a couple. The main reason I wanted to make sure I got on this episode, even if I feel like hell, is I wanted to just share the love for The Ritual that's on Netflix right now.
Yeah.
It really it's going to be my number one going at the start of this year. It's a mature adult horror. It's it's nice to see Bruckner finally get the feature and deliver completely. I feel like it maybe falls like just short of a total masterpiece, and I think that's partially maybe I have to read the book, but the emotional through line from the start to end is built up so well. I'm not sure if that part is completely paid off at the very end, but I got to watch it again before I totally decide on that. But just in terms of the Wicker Man, that kind of folksy European horror, it just ticked all those boxes that get me excited about a movie, and I loved it.
Yeah, we talked about it briefly last week on the Ladies show. But yeah, it was one of those that it struck me by surprise. I wasn't really expecting it. And somebody had messaged me and was like, you have to watch this. It's coming to Netflix tomorrow. You're going to love it. And I literally went in knowing nothing about it. I didn't even know it was directed by David Bruckner. But as soon as I found that out, I was like, it makes so much sense. Because if you've seen, like, his Southbound segment is nothing but tension. And then watching The Ritual, it's tension.
His first segment in The Signal, which sets up that whole movie, is terrific.
Yeah.
And I agree with you.
VHS is all about guys, right? It's all about guys on the night out.
VHS segment. I agree with you. I absolutely love this movie. And it's funny, which is kind of the trait of all great horror movies. The scariest thing to me is what happens in the opening sequence. And the fact that, because it's one of those things, it's like, shit, I don't know what I would do if you were in that position where your life is threatened and so is your friends, but you have this kind of, he kind of doesn't intervene when maybe he could. And literally it keeps coming back to that. I thought Bruckner, kind of the way that he keeps bringing us back to that scene, like kind of in the woods, like the way that things kind of pull aside and bring us back to it, is emotionally one of the scariest things in that movie. I love that about it. And more than anything, I watched it with my roommate halfway through. I was like, I wish this was Blair Witch 3.
This is definitely has a lot of the same scares. It has a lot of the same buildups, like Blair Witch, where Blair Witch didn't, for me, connect. And I think it's because it didn't really have an emotional through line.
Do you think it would have worked as a theatrical?
Oh, man, that's a tough call. I think so. But it would have been like a word of mouth sort of festival favorite. I feel like it would have been a much smaller, I think it got a bigger impact on Netflix, especially a week after Cloverfield. Mm-hmm. Like after that, and everyone was so disappointed. Right. It was kind of like, no, you won't be disappointed by this one. This one's actually pretty good. So I think it's almost like a pleasant surprise that it appeared that way.
Yeah, I think
it was theatrical in the UK. And so it makes sense because it feels like it was shot for a big screen. I mean, that's the great thing about the style of it, which is the only negative. But I don't know. It's an all-male cast. It's always hard to tell,
I would see limited theatrical festival, darling. I wouldn't think wide scale.
It is too bad that a movie like that can't coexist in theaters in some limited capacity.
Oh, yeah.
And Netflix, but someday.
There's and these won't be any spoilers, but that first sequence where they first discover a shed, and I won't go in beyond that, nothing even really happens, but it's really terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
And to be able build tension and dread out of the unseen is exactly why I keep coming back to horror. So when somebody nails it like that, it's just, man, that can keep me going for a couple years.
Mm-hmm. No, they built tension and dread out of trees. It was literally a shot through the trees of just the dense forest and then moving beyond it. And it was like one of the most anxiety-inducing shots of the movie for me. So, and the creature was great. So yeah. That was a good one.
Bekah, throw one out of us.
So yeah, this week I watched Race with the Devil from 1975, which I thought I had seen but had not seen. Couper, I watched this just for you because you love like the weird titles.
Wait, this is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I know.
Deep cut.
This is a total Bekah. It's not actually that deep of a cut. So this is 1975. This is like an amalgam of a whole bunch of different exploitation subgenres. So you have Peter Fonda and Warren Oates and their wives, one of whom is from MASH, played Hot Lips on MASH, and they are motocross racers. Elric, do you know exactly what the sport they played was?
Well, they're not. One of them is a racer like that, but they own a store.
Yeah, they own a motorcycle store. And so one of them, I think it's Warren Oates' character, buys this like giant RV, which was apparently really plush for 1975. And when you watch it, like you can just picture it smelling like cigarette smoke, like already. It's what your parents made you go camping in when you were a kid. But they buy this thing and it's super plush and they're excited because it's got a microwave. And they decide that they're going to drive it up to, I think it's Aspen, and go skiing. So they are in Texas and they depart on this journey up to go skiing. And the first night they stop, they do some motorcycle racing around the desert. And then after the ladies retire to the camper, they, across this little stream, see this like crazy satanic ritual and it breaks into an orgy and then there's a sacrifice. And then something happens and the Satanists suddenly all turn and they realize that Warren Oates and Peter Fonda just witnessed their sacrifice. And so then there's this mad dash to get the camper out of the woods and to get them to safety because the Satanists, they go like ravenous where they're like hanging off the sides of the camper while it's driving away, like trying to punch through the windows and everything. And they make it to town. They tell the sheriff and the sheriff takes them back. They find nothing. And so they're like, I don't know, kids in the woods doing crazy shit. And so Peter Fonda and Warren Oates continue on their way, but they realize that they are kind of being hunted. And so every single town they go to, every truck stop they stop at, they start becoming suspicious that everyone's involved. And they are. And so much of the state turns out to be Satanists. And it really does become kind of a combination of car exploitation, satanic exploitation. It's definitely got a lot of motorcycle action in there. And it's got
Oates exploitation.
Yeah, it's got Oates in it. So that he's kind of his own subgenre.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love Warren Oates?
Yeah. So
also, you only forgot one key plot point, which is when they see the satanic ritual, they are drunk off their asses.
Oh my gosh.
Blind drunk, the two of them. So it's hilarious because it goes from comedy to like, they think they're going to see some naked breasts to, oh fuck. It's
there
great.
was one part when I was watching it, and it's when they were racing at the very beginning, where you can tell that Peter Fonda dropped a line, and so Warren Oates said it for him, and then they all laughed and he kept going. And why they kept that cut in the movie is beyond me, but it was so clear that it was like, don't you want to say something about blankety blank? And then they all crack up, and then they just kept rolling
It's
with
like
it.
Warren Oates is like, line.
So it was
the 70s, Bekah. Just let it roll.
just fast and loose, baby, fast and loose.
Easy Rider.
So, yeah, it is a trip. If you like Easy Rider, if you're into the 70s car exploitation, this is literally like if Vanishing Point divulged into a horror film.
Difficult Rider, I guess.
Difficult Rider.
And how did you watch Race with the Devil? Is this on Blu-ray?
It was on Amazon Prime.
Just recently, I think.
Yeah, it was on, I don't think it was Prime. I'm pretty sure it did just recently get a Blu-ray release, but I paid like $1.99 and watched it on Amazon.
Nice.
So, yeah, highly recommend checking it out. It's a fun one.
Couper, you want to chime in? Is there something recently you've seen that you'd like to recommend or talk to us about?
I feel like I will just engender lots of blowback from your audience because, of course, the stuff that I see is like, the 40th cut of Lee Winnell's movie Upgrade, which is spectacular. Which is, by the way, the reason for any rumbling that any.
If you hear rumbling in this episode, it's Lee's new movie.
It's Logan Marshall Green kicking the shit out of somebody elaborately in the mixing stage next door.
Do you have time to watch movies for fun, like the way that
Ryan
Ryan
does?
did watch?
I watched. I don't. You know what? My media diet, unfortunately, does not include a lot of non-Blumhouse content, which is a problem. But I watched 2 Landis deep cuts in preparation for this, which we'll talk about with John. But one was Innocent Blood.
Yeah, I revisited that too.
Such a good film.
And which is a really interesting movie. Another one that is, I think, less achieved is Into the Night. Which is basically kind
Jeff
of
Goldblum.
with sort of like it's like if Elliot Gould circa Long Goodbye was in North by Northwest, basically.
Wow, that sounds like a crazy mix.
Or like After Hours, a little After Hours.
It's After Hours, but it's much shaggier, and both kind of interesting, off-key Landis, but Innocent Blood is what's interesting about Innocent Blood is I have this theory that genre is like a total red herring. Like there's no such thing as genre. Everything's a drama basically, and some dramas have certain expectations for laughs and some have expectations for scares. And Innocent Blood, you can literally pitch out the thriller version of Innocent Blood.
Yeah.
You could pitch out the comedy version of Innocent Blood. And for those of you who don't know, Innocent Blood it's also like it's a Donnie Brasco. You could make Innocent
total
Blood
mobster movie.
Yeah, it totally
just a
feels like
pure mobster movie. And it's in of course I went down the rabbit hole of Rotten Tomatoes after watching it. Just I was like curious, like 1992. Like what did 1992 think of Innocent Blood? And of course, like some of John's stuff, they massively disparaged. You got no credit for what was so interesting about it. But yeah, you could literally do it's Anthony LaPaglia is like an undercover detective in the mafia who's also who gets pulled out at the same time that Anne Poiriard, aka La Femme Nikita,
the original.
Turns, the non-Bridget Fonda Femme Nikita, just to be clear. Dermot Mulroney's not in this movie. And it really what you end up having is a kind of a sort of undercover thriller that also really sort of works as a mobster movie, but also has got some slapstick and hijinks in it. And
it's interesting. I don't want to get too much into my feelings about it because Landis will be here momentarily. But I talked about it like 2-3 episodes ago. I think there's a lot of good stuff in it. I think it's a little too long of a movie.
It is too long. It is too long.
But there's a good movie in there and there's a lot of good ideas in there. And I do appreciate that movie. But yeah, that's super cool. I've never
Robert
seen
Loggia is awesome in it.
Oh yes, yeah. I have a Loggia story that I want to ask John about when he's here. I'll throw a couple more quick ones out. I have just checked out, for better or worse, Severin Films' new release of Eaten Alive.
Oh boy!
No, this is not the Tobe Hooper movie. This is the Cannibal movie by who is this? The guy that did Cannibal, Lenzi, who did Cannibal Ferox. Mm-hmm. But this was one of his first ones, I believe, right? Like
this came before Ferox. I remember Ferox being a lot more refined than this. If you go refined with your cannibal flicks,
yeah. And I don't know why I keep coming back to these cannibal flicks when I know I'm not going to like it ever. But I never seen this one, and so I was like, oh, what the hell? I'm curious. And so I watch it. It's a beautiful, amazing restoration, as only Severin Films can do. It's kind of a vile movie that's part cannibal Holocaust, but really a lot of Jim Jones. It's like a cult leader that's behind the cannibals, like with his own cult there.
What is his motivation for that? I'm really curious about.
I think he just wanted to escape from the world. And what better way to start your own cult than to not? They can't get to you because there's a tribe of cannibals in the way.
Oh, so the cannibals are the cult.
No. There's cannibals. They're kind of like around where he sets up his camp. They're not cannibals at all. There's just like a cult in the middle of this setting where there's cannibals all around.
It's like a chain link fence.
Got it. Exactly. Made of cannibals.
Made of cannibals, exactly.
Who, for some reason, will not touch the cult.
I don't know why
it's an outward-facing cannibal.
Yes, outward-facing. It's only intruders. And so the movie's okay. This is some of the most vile animal violence that I've seen. It really bugged me. Like, they kill an alligator. I don't know why that's the thing. And the one that really disturbed me, and I'll tell you so you don't have to watch it, there's a part where a little monkey gets eaten by a python, like a giant snake.
Totally out.
And yeah, there's a shot where you like see like the monkeys like realize like, oh shit, this is it. And it's just it's the most horrific thing I've ever seen. It's like, I don't want to watch a monkey really get eaten by a fucking python. This is horrible.
We could also not watch it and you could not tell us about it. But that is also
too late. It's in your mind right now. But I will say this, the best thing about this release is the features are always fascinating. And there's one in particular is a feature-length documentary called Mimi Lay Bites Back. And I was telling Bekah before we started, she's did like 3 or 4 of these cannibal movies and kind of like left the business and never wanted to talk about it. And so they found her and did a whole documentary about, she's in one of the Pink Panther movies and this whole thing. So it's kind of fascinating to hear her stories about like working on these movies with Lenzi and kind of her taking the career and how she kind of tried to distance herself from him. But here she is again.
You really get eaten alive as an actress, in
So, I don't know. Elric, maybe you'll enjoy this one, but I had a tough time with it. It's
hard pass from Elric.
I'm good with just Cannibal Holocaust. I've done it. Yeah. That's all I need.
Yeah, it's kind of the quintessential one.
Elric's already sick.
And let me see, the other one I wanted to mention, if Night of the Living Dead, the Criterion is my pick of the week or the year already, a close second has got to be the Arrow release of Basket Case on Blu-ray.
Oh, nice.
Now, this had come out years ago from Something Weird, but Arrow just did a brand new restoration. There's tons of features on it. Elric, I know you're a big fan of Basket Case.
I love that film, yeah.
And here's the thing, like I just, sometimes you're a little skeptical about upgrading something you already own because you're like, oh, what else are they going to do? But let me tell you, the features on this are terrific. I was like, every single one of them, and they're all done by Hennon Lauder himself. And so there's one called Basket Case 3.5, and it's like an 8-minute short film of Hennon Lauder pretending to be a documentarian interviewing Dwayne Bradley, the character from the movie.
That's like the most Hennon Lauder thing
It's so
ever.
great. And he starts talking about his brother Belial, how he went out into the woods and just had all these kids. So there's like a bunch of Belials running out in the woods somewhere. It's terrific. And then, there's one special called Seeing Double, which is... There's like twin nurses in this movie, like for one shot. And you're like, why would they interview him? Like, why would this be interesting to hear from them? They're Hennon Lauder's cousins. And they're Long Island like I am. And so it's hilarious because they're like, we got a sixth sense of humor from Frank. That's why we did the movie. And so it's just like he would surround himself by such characters, including Beverly Bonner, new interview with her. And then the Q&A from when they restored this and showed it at the MoMA.
They showed that at the MoMA?
Yes, and I mean, and his introduction is like, who would have thought? This is ridiculous. What are we doing here tonight? So, I mean, every feature to this movie, this new release is terrific. And not only that, but they carted over all of the old features from the previous release. The movie itself looks and sounds as good as Basket Case could possibly look and sound. Part of the appeal is how kind of sleazy and quintessentially New York it is. But this and Night of the Living Dead are like the 2 best releases this year. They're going to be the ones to beat. So
nice.
There you go.
I'll fly through a couple of quick titles. So I watched And Now the Screaming Starts, which is another one of the ones that was put out by Severin.
Yep.
This one's from 1973. Did not like it as much as Asylum, but it does have some really good effects throughout. There's a lot of disembodied hands moving around.
Yeah, is the hand coming through the painting and all that?
Yeah,
I kind of liked it.
It was okay with me. It was not, I didn't like it as much as Asylum, but yeah, it still worked. I rewatched Humanoids of the Deep because somebody was giving me crap online about how I love aquatic horrors, but I don't like Humanoids of the Deep that much. Never been one of my favorite films. And so I was like, you know what? I'll rewatch it and give it a chance. This is directed by Barbara Peters, which I love that it had a female director from 1980. It's a Corman film. And I rewatched it and realized that I'm not as fond of it because it's not really an aquatic horror because the 90% of it happens on the beach.
Yeah, well, and they're a bunch of rapey sea
monsters.
Now.
And
am I not mistaken about that?
No, they are. They totally are. It's the whole concept is that there's this salmon fishery and they've been like genetically altering the salmon, and it makes these giant mutated humanoids who then come onto the beach, find ladies, rape them in hopes of making humanoid babies. And it's not a pretty film in any way. Even in the filming of it, it's just not a pretty film. You're either looking at a salmon cannery or these weird, like, gooey, rapey monsters. So it's It just doesn't do it for me. I can see why people would like it because it is a good creature feature. It's a low budget one. It feels very kind of throwback to the 50s with a lot of exploitation notes in it. But yeah, not one of my favorite aquatic horrors.
Yeah, it's not swimming upstream for you.
Totally.
My two favorite things about that are, well, fuck it, I guess I'll tell the story anyway. Roger Corman, because Shout Factory had done all his releases, and apparently he did one lengthy interview to talk about all of them in a row. And then,
to save money.
Yeah, just to obviously save
so
money.
Corman.
As you would do. They would just splice it into all the releases. And I think they asked him, like, oh, so we're going to talk to all these different people from the career. Is there anybody we shouldn't talk to? He's like, no, it's fine. I'm okay with everybody. And he's like, wait a minute, maybe not the director from Humanoids. She probably won't have anything nice to say. And so I was like, that's a bit rough. And also they only had 3 costumes, and they made it seem like there was like 1 million of them.
I was also confused because there were these people that were swimming in bikinis. Like they do this whole scene on the beach in bikinis. But whenever anybody shows up to investigate the bodies, they're wearing like flannels and turtlenecks and full winter jackets. So I have to assume it was really fucking cold when they shot this, and those actors were just miserable. And there was like nudity on the beach, like full out nudity. And yeah, it just looked really cold there.
Wow.
Bleak. It's a bleak film for me. But I know some people love it. So yeah, we each have our own.
You got anything else, Elric?
Yeah, I got a few quickies. I think we're saving the new Hellraiser film for Ryan's return, correct?
Yes, requested that.
Yes.
So needless to say, in the meantime, it is a masterpiece. That's all you know. So make sure you pay money to watch it and support that franchise that always delivers.
I'm also
to the bitter end.
I'm saving Scalpel for you to return, and Turek as well. But I did watch Scalpel this week.
A quickie, I showed a film class The Fly on Valentine's Day, which was awesome. Nice. Show it as a romance from that angle and kind of break it down a little bit as a romance, which was a lot of fun. And that movie's just a fucking masterpiece. It just holds up better and better every time I watch it. The performances are so great and their chemistry is so great. A movie that actually didn't, and it always kind of breaks my heart when I rewatch something that I'm excited by. We're doing a prison episode of Pure Cinema coming up, and I was sure Fortress would make my list because I loved it when I was young. And I rewatched it. I love Stuart Gordon, but man, this is the first time I saw where he lost so much of his budget when this thing was going to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Oh, yeah. And this time I could totally tell. Like I was watching this going, why isn't this going bigger? And why isn't this going in this direction? And the whole film just felt like, I don't know, it felt like a very different experience rewatching it. It still has some really interesting, like sexual, weird interactions going on. What's his name from that 70s show on RoboCop, Red? What's his name? What's the main Smith. Bad? Yeah, Kurtwood. Yeah, Kurtwood's still really fun.
Amityville, the Awakening.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Particularly Amityville, the Awakening. He's really good. But yeah, the film just. It's a cool idea for a movie, though. It's a really cool idea for a movie. I dug it. But the only other thing I'd rave about that I just caught up to last night actually was the Channel Zero Butcher's Blog, the first 2 episodes.
It's so fucking good.
I loved it. And I've loved everything they've done, even though like there's always mixed moments. But this so far, first 2 episodes, again, totally different, really strong, visually original at every beat, dread-fueled, and the best of all, and the one thing I ask from this genre is, don't let me know what's going to happen. Like, I'm starting watching this, and I don't know where it's going to go, and I love that feeling.
I'm on episode 5, and I still have no idea what's going on. I have enough to say, like, okay, well, here's this character, and here's what she's doing, and here's what's going on, but I have no idea where it's heading. So that doesn't end, and I'm hoping it kind of comes together in the 6th episode, but we'll see.
They will be our guests next week.
They will be our guests next week. So I have many questions.
Yeah, no, I just love that. I love the way he's building these shows, to be honest. And I love the way he's casting a director as the kind of the head of the ship for each series. And this is a woman who had just done a really small indie film. So I'd be very curious to know a little bit more about how he picked her. And yeah, no, it's just a very rich show.
And plus, this feels so different from the prior seasons. Like, they've made sure that each one feels drastically different. Yeah. And this one, I mean, it's set in an inner city. There's a lot about graffiti. There's a lot about poverty. Like, this has a lot of social messaging in it, in addition to being kind of completely reinventing the wheel each time.
And a star, which they haven't really ever had somebody super recognizable. This one has Rutger Hauer. So
and Rutger Hauer is great in it. Like, the last thing I'd seen Rutger Hauer in was like Dracula 3D.
God,
yeah. And so like seeing him in this, I'm like, oh my God, he's great in this.
Yeah, people forget how great Rutger can be.
He wasn't convincing to you in the boardroom in The Dark Knight.
That's true.
I forgot that
scene.
Hostile takeover.
Yeah.
Hobo with a shotgun.
Yeah. Oh, Hobo with a shotgun.
Yeah, he's
Who
fun.
bought all this stock at the last second?
It was
that was me.
Rutger
That was
Hauer.
Morgan Freeman did it.
Cool. Well, lastly, before we go on to the next part of the show, I did see, I'll tell you what else I saw during the 2-week gap was I had enjoyed Creep, the Mark Duplass movie, and then I realized I had not seen Creep 2, which is on Netflix. And so one night I watched it, and let me tell you something. I loved Creep 2. I thought I liked the first one. I think the second one is 10 times better, a movie. Yeah. I was just laughing the whole time and really into it. I just thought it was such a smart, sharp way to make a sequel. Like I was just I was taken really by surprise by it. And so if you enjoyed the first one, which was, I guess you could say a found footage kind of in the mind of a serial killer, like how he operates, this one goes fully like, now that you know that gimmick, it just fully embraces that. And it's kind of like a girl who doesn't take it seriously, who just wants to have this, big internet show, kind of crosses paths with him. And I thought it was exceptional.
Well,
I really loved it.
She's incredible.
She was great.
Movie.
Who is that?
And they're equals, which is cool. They become equals.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, their relationship throughout the duration of the movie was terrific.
And I think Patrick will be the first to tell you that the challenge with the first Creep is he directed it very well. He didn't perform it as well as he directed it. He had a little bit of a lox at the center of his movie, which they figured out, essentially how to make Mark the sort of big central id of the movie, and to have him soak up all the oxygen was sort of the way around that challenge. But yeah, I love both of those.
Yeah, Desiree Akavan, who played Sarah, she's terrific.
Who by the way directed a movie at Sundance that won the Grand Jury Prize this year.
That is freaking
about
awesome.
Gay conversion therapy. A really interesting movie that is not available for anyone to see anytime soon, but
will be eventually.
Yeah, if someone is getting around to listening to this in October, it'll be out.
Oh, okay. There
Very
we go.
cool.
October. Cool. The Miseducation of Cameron Post.
Exactly.
Is that what that's called? Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Look for it. But yeah, Creep 2. Lastly, shout out to Jimmy Gonzalez from Vegas, a DJ filmmaker who gifted us all with this Blu-ray of Video Nasties, Forbidden Horrors, and Dirty Synth Scores, mixed and edited by Cinema Therapy. He even gave one to Ernie. He wanted to make sure that our sound engineer got credit because he doesn't get enough credit. That is true. Ernie does a lot for us.
Ernie's amazing.
And this is cool.
He's overrated.
Come on, Elric. And this is cool. Basically, it's kind of a mix of famous themes from movies, but it's the scenes from the movies. And so it's kind of like the sort of thing you could put on in the background at a party and just hear some cool tunes and see some kind of fucked up shit at the same time. And this is for sale. I know that twoheadeddog.com sells these. So we're going to take a look and talk about it next week. But thank you, Jimmy, for sending these. We really appreciate it. And that said, we're going to bring our guest on and see what happens.
And now a word
I'll
from...
disappear.
Oh, now, yeah, Elric disappears.
Oh, you're leaving us, Kane?
A word from our sponsors.
Yeah.
God, get back to dying. Or what was your word for it that you were saying? You're snuffling?
I was spluttering.
Spluttering. That's not a real fucking word, dude.
It is a real word.
It's a Kaneism.
Spluttering.
Right.
Anyways, now a word from our
guys.
sponsors. Today's episode of Shockwaves is brought to you by Shudder. Brought to you by the AMC Network, Shudder is not only a premium streaming video service, but an experience unlike any other. Created for fans of all degrees of thrillers, suspense, and horror, Shudder is the home to the largest and fastest-growing human-curated selection of high-quality, spine-tingling, and provocative films, TV series, and originals. There's always something new and unexpected for Shudder members to explore. Premiering on Shudder this week is Dead Shack, a cabin-in-the-woods horror comedy straight out of the 1980s. While staying at a rundown cabin in the woods, 3 foul-mouthed kids must save their parents from a neighbor who intends to feed them to her undead family. Dead Shack is the type of rousing, rebellious, crowd-pleasing horror comedy. Those who casually delight in kids teaming up against supernatural odds will eat it up, slapping its own bloody print on the kids versus creatures subgenre. Praised as a scrappy Sam Raimi-esque vision by Slash Film, Dead Shack is now streaming on Shudder. Shudder is available for $4.99 a month or $49.99 with an annual membership. But our listeners can get a free month by entering promo code SHOCK at checkout. Again, that's promo code SHOCK at checkout. Go to Shudder.com today to find the best collection of thrillers, suspense, and horror available to stream anywhere.
Tonight's episode is also brought to you by Fright Rags. Fright Rags is the #1 source for horror t-shirts with specially curated collections created by renowned horror artists. They offer the best art and the best quality anywhere. New this week at Fright Rags, they have just brought back a ton of previously retired designs back in stock, including Evil Dead, Creepshow, The Thing, Silence of the Lambs, and more. Also new, the officially licensed Bela Lugosi collection, which includes t-shirts, socks, and enamel pins. Also, they now have both a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre collection and a Child's Play collection. So head over to www.fright-rags.com now. You can enter the code SHOCK0118 at checkout to get 10% off your entire order. Again, that's SHOCK0118. Head over to www.fright-rags.com. And guess what? The Shockwaves team is headed back to Texas Frightmare this May, and we hope to see you all there. Texas Frightmare is the Southwest Premier Horror Convention, and it's now celebrating their 13th year. They always have the best guests, the best panels, which will be moderated by us, Shockwaves.
Yeah, go Team Shockwaves.
And you don't want to miss out. Just announced today, Texas Frightmare will be showing a sneak preview of Arrow's recently restored Last House on the Left release. That's the original Wes Craven movie, getting its due. And they have cast members Jeremy Rain and Mark Scheffler on hand as guests. Other guests include Clive Barker, several of the Cenobites, including Doug Bradley, all of the kids from It's Losers Club, Tobin Bell, Shawnee Smith, Ron Perlman, Charlie Band, Brad Dourif, Katie Featherstone, and many more. Head to www.texasfrightmareweekend.com and get your tickets now. Welcome back to the show. This is very exciting for all of us because I don't know if you realize how influential you are to people of our age, in particular because I think my love of horror, even though I love the Universal Monster movies, it really started with Thriller. Mm-hmm. I think Thriller was such a big deal for people of my age on MTV, and of course the making of Thriller, because that was the first time I'd ever saw how these things were done, and it really just opened my mind up. But thank you to Couper for setting this up. Our guest today is Mr. John Landis. Welcome.
From Death Race 2000.
The star.
Of Death Race
Star
2000.
Death Race 2000, as we just learned.
The first one.
The original.
The Paul Bartel one.
There's been six since.
Not Paul Anderson's.
In which I'm killed by Sylvester Stallone.
Nice.
Right.
You said you still remembered your line. What's the line?
I wonder if somebody got points for that eye.
With spot on delivery.
Actually, I'm the only one in the film with long hair.
All right.
Because I wouldn't cut my hair. And I was only supposed to do a stunt, and Paul gave me a line of dialogue. He was a lovely guy. Did you ever see Eating Raoul?
Eating Raoul was great.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Criterion did a really great
another
release.
cannibal movie, or no?
It's
Not
it's
exactly.
more of like an art house cannibal movie.
Wait. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's also terribly funny.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, really hilarious. Mary Warnoff, right? It was
Wonderful.
Yeah, she's great. Anytime they
And
got
Roberto,
together.
what's his name? He was named Robert now. But Roberto Beltran, who later became one of the Star Trek Voyager people.
Oh, yeah.
He was Chakotay. No, he wasn't Chakotay. I'm a big Voyager fan, so I have to look that one
He
up.
was one of the main guys.
Yeah.
Had to open that can with Star Trek. But
I know. We talked Star Trek last week when you weren't here.
I know,
I was
I
like,
understand,
Trekkie's taking over the show right now.
He played Raoul. So it's a title role because they actually murder and eat Raoul.
Right.
Here's where I would like to start, because believe it or not, John, I've tried to interview you many times over the years, and the fates have not been again. It's just been denied every
John
time.
said no.
A lot of times, yes, but that's fine.
I
because
interviewed him
still...
for Fangoria before.
All right, fine. This is my time now.
Fangoria's coming back.
I'm
Yes.
involved in it.
We
I'm
talked about it
excited.
at the top of the show
Yeah.
with the new editor.
With the new editor,
New
and
owner
I've been
came
hired on as one of the people, because I was at the other Fangoria.
Is I got an email from Tony.
Tony Timpone.
Yeah, Tony, and saying Fangoria's coming back, and would I film a little thing? And I'm thinking, no, but I'll give him a quote. So I gave him some quote. But then he writes an email. But this is a secret. It hasn't been announced. And then You told me you started the show with it. I read about it.
Yeah, it's a really good
We
story.
announced it on Tuesday.
Yeah, last
I think
week.
it was. Yeah.
It's already old news. Come on.
But it's coming back. It's like Peter Cushing in Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
Can't keep Fangoria down.
Peter Cushing in Rogue One also.
Yeah. Well, this is where I wanted to.
That was completely unsuccessful.
It was. Well, it's also so rare to see something so misbegotten that was created in post production, because usually, like, at that point, you have the movie and you can be like, oh, that doesn't work.
It's so off, isn't it? It took me out every time.
You know the expression "uncanny valley"?
Yeah, that's the case of it. I don't know why they just couldn't hire an actor. I mean, nobody could be Peter Cushing, but if
why
there's
couldn't
an
they just
actor,
use that one shot where they have the reflection?
You're correct.
The whole audience went wild with that one shot where you're over the shoulder and you have a little reflection, and leave it alone.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new Blade Runner?
Yes.
No, not yet.
Because in that,
They use Sean
Young. You see a shot of the real Sean Young from Blade Runner coming toward you, and then they have all this animation, fake CG on a real actress who's not Sean Young, who's being Sean Young. Yeah. It just destroyed. I'm thinking, well, I'm out of this picture.
It's a little bizarre.
It's very special edition George Lucas to do that.
Here's where I wanted to start, if it's okay.
We're going to go back to that. Okay.
Well, here's the thing. Listen, I've listened to a lot of your interviews, and I just love
sorry.
Well, no,
With all the people who John said yes to.
If anybody, yes, none like me. But no, I love your passion for film history in general, and you always tell these great stories. And many years ago, I was the kid that pestered you about being part of my Psycho documentary. And one of the main reasons I did is because Mick Garris has since become a really good friend, and he told me that you were really good friends with Hitchcock, or that you used to have lunch with Hitchcock.
Yeah, I mean, I did have many meals with Mr. Hitchcock, and I did know him, but to call me a really good friend, I think is stretching.
How did you meet him?
Okay, but that's the thing. It's like I love learning from his films. I actually just watched The Lady Vanishes, the Criterion edition this week,
funny?
and it's from 1938, and it's still just so sharp and hilarious.
How great is Robert Downey?
And they're all great. Yeah. And the thing is, I think it was even Mick that said, like, it's kind of almost hard to believe now in retrospect that he existed. Like, he's such a character. Mm-hmm. And so I can't imagine how it is to share a meal with him. And so how did that even happen? And, what were your experiences like with Hitchcock?
I met him because after Animal House, I was going to make a movie with Lily Tomlin. I spent almost 10 months in pre-production called The Incredible Shrinking Woman. And Lily's partner, Gene Wagner, had written the script. And then with her permission, I did another draft. And then I was very excited about it. And we had they ended up making the movie like 2 years later.
Yeah.
But it's very different than the movie I was making. It had two similar scenes where she goes on Merv Griffin and also Rick Baker playing the gorilla named Sidney after Sid Sheinberg, who's he's in the movie, and I had cast Henry Gibson, and Henry stayed in the movie. But other than that, it's a very different movie. Jane had written a fairly political piece, and it's sad because we got unprecedented permissions to shoot in Washington, D.C. I had permission to shoot a chase sequence with a gorilla in the Capitol Dome.
Oh, my gosh.
And an assassination where a politician's giving a speech at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with a shooter on the Jefferson Memorial. And they had given us permission to do everything into the Air and Space Museum. And mainly because of Animal House. But I remember Senator Sam Ervin. That was my school. But anyway, we got all these extraordinary permissions. We did a huge amount of work with Albert Whitlock, the great Albert Whitlock, and Cliff Stein, who's an old effects guy. And my wife, Deborah, she's a well-known costume designer, either as Deborah Nadoolman or Deborah Landis, but she made the most incredible costumes for Lily, where as Lily shrank, even the weave of the fabric got bigger. It was amazing. And my two favorite costumes, when she goes on Merv, she took, do you know what stiff hand puppets, those really pretty puppets. They have a button in their ear. You know Steiff? It's a German toy teddy bear company. You don't know Steiff?
Oh, I know the teddy bears. I've never seen their puppets, though.
I'm so depressed.
Yeah, John's regretting going on this podcast.
I'm Googling this so that we're not completely
Anyway,
at a loss.
these are wonderful hand puppets, and they still make stuff. When you go to, well, that's gone. FAO Schwarz, they had
that's gone.
The life-size giraffe and stuff.
Yeah.
That was Steiff.
Oh, then
it's a German company. They're very expensive. Anyway, these hand puppets, wonderful hand puppets, and they're furry, and they have. Do you remember when you get a haircut and it's short in the back and you run your finger on it like that? That's what Steiff puppets felt like.
Wow.
People with Steiff puppets, they'll always be rubbing their puppet. Anyway, she's the size of Barbie, so she's about this big, and she actually wore Barbie clothes, which, are not cut for humans.
Right. Yeah.
Barbie's body is anatomically impossible, so it was those were wonderful with snaps like this big, and anyway. But then she goes on the Merv Griffin show, so her character needed to be dressed up, so she takes a Steiff puppet and cuts it up the front. And then she wears it like a fur coat, but it was a bulldog. And what was wonderful was the head was sort of like back like a hood. It was a spectacular costume. Anyway,
did you ever do the costumes on it? Even though we were 10 weeks from filming.
So
why did you not do it?
What happened was Lily was making a movie at the time called Moment by Moment with John Travolta, directed by Jane Wagner, and it's you don't even remember that movie, do you? Mm-hmm. Well, John Travolta, you could not be a bigger star than John. He had done Saturday Night Fever and Grease and Urban Cowboy. He was huge. And now he's doing this love story with Lily Tomlin called Moment by Moment. It's not a good movie. Let me just say that. And when it came out, it was a famous disaster. And I'm called to Ned Tan. Now, I'm making at that time a $12 million movie, which was a lot of money. Yeah. And I get called to Ned Tannen's office, the head of Universal. And he says, John, yeah. Have you seen the results from Moment by Moment? Yeah. Did you see the movie? Yeah. How'd you think Lily was? I said, well, shit, and anyway, he took my budget away. He said, well, we don't feel that so we're cutting it back. I have a $12 million movie that's all special effects, and he's cutting me back to 4.
All because they didn't like her performance?
No, the movie...
The incredible shrinking budget.
It goes from being a huge hot movie star to not. Like John Travolta, it took Pulp Fiction to bring him back. He was out in the woods for a long time. Anyway, so I did. So during that time, I had an idea, and my idea was to do. You're too young, but at that moment, 1978 and 9, Hitch did a series of commercials as a on-screen character for the Universal Tour. Do you remember those? Ever see those?
No.
Well, the best one is he's sitting in the tram by the Jaws Lake, and the shark comes out of the how it comes mechanically. It would come up like that and roar, and people are screaming, and Hitch went. Like that, and then it would be. Come to Hollywood and catch. Well, what's it? Catch? Either watch or catch. I forgot Hollywood in the Act. It was Hitch.
Yeah.
And, Hitch was one of those guys who really, like Cecil B. DeMille, he really understood what is now called branding.
Yeah.
And he became the master of suspense, and he had his profile, and then he used television very well, just like DeMille used radio very well with the Lux Theater. They made themselves the attraction, the new Alfred Hitchcock movie. People didn't know the names of directors, but they knew DeMille and they knew Hitchcock.
I had a line of kids' books that were Hitchcock. They were like Hitchcock branded.
He did magazine, Hitchcock Mystery Magazine.
Records. They were like scary story records.
He had all kinds of stuff. And his TV show was wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
In any case, so Hitch, I had this idea, since Universal was using him as a shell, I approached Lew Wasserman and I said, would you introduce me to Mr. Hitchcock? And Lew, why? You want me to tell you a truly insane Hollywood story?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I certainly told this story, but I'm not sure I've ever told it to the vast audience of the Blumhouse podcast. Yeah. Is this like on a channel? How does this work?
We're on the Blumhouse channel.
Yeah. You get it on your phone or what? You download it online.
Can you tell how many people listen to it?
Not on air.
Enough. You cut to 4 people in a room going, yes. Anyway, well, I'll tell it. I don't.
Yes, we've opened this can of worms. I've been waiting for your Hitchcock story.
I have told this story before, but never publicly. But so what happened was Hilton Green, who you made him. I met him. I never saw your doc. I'm sorry,
it's totally fine.
You knew Hilton.
I knew Hilton. I showed it to him. He's such a sweet guy. Really, really sweet.
Marsh Green was the first AD on Spartacus, but Marsh was head of production when I made Animal House, physical production. Right. And Marsh was a USC football guy with like a crew cut and, big guy. And he was great, really great. And his brother, Hilton, was also an AD. And Hilton worked in television. And at that time, there was a real divide in the 50s between television and movies, and it was a whole thing. Anyway, Hitch... You know how Psycho's a Paramount picture? Although now it's a Universal picture because Lou bought the Paramount library. Right. But it was released by Paramount. Even though it was shot entirely at Universal, which was then called Review Studios. MCA owned it. Hitch did his TV series as an MCA client at Universal. Review Studios at the time. And he really liked his crew. And he directed 4 or 5 of those shows. I don't really know the number, but more than one. And he enjoyed it because, you shoot really. It's the opposite of the way Hitch worked. I mean, you shot really fast. Yeah. And you had 4 days to do an hour or something like that. 3 days to do an hour. Anyway, so as an experiment, but also to save money, Lew Wasserman was his agent. And they made a deal with Paramount that Alfred Hitchcock Productions would actually make the film. Paramount would give him the money. Right. And what he did was he went to his TV crew, his TV cameraman, his TV crew, and he shot it at Universal. And his AD on the TV series was Hilton Green. Yep. And so he made Hilton the AD on Psycho. And then Hilton became a trusted guy to Hitch, and when years later they started doing the sequels and stuff, Hilton did. Hilton produced them all and stuff, and protected Hitchcock's interests, sort of. Anyway, so the thrilling story I'm telling you is, Lou says, "Why do you want to meet him?" And I said, "Because I want a trailer in theaters a year before Shrinking Woman comes out." And he said, "What would it be?" And I said, "It would be, a shot of the Universal Studios, and you'd sort of move in, and the Hitchcock bungalow, and you'd go in and you'd find in silhouette, Alfred Hitchcock behind his desk. And he would turn and say, 'Good evening,' like he did. Yeah. And he would say, 'Work is underway.' I've forgotten it. 'Work is underway here at Universal Studios in Hollywood on potentially the most important motion picture of all time.' And the whole thing is he'd be sitting with his hands folded on the desk. And he'd say, 'The Incredible Shrinking Woman starring Lily Tomlin.' And then he'd open his hands, and Lily would be about 3 inches tall on the desk, like like that. And then titles and out, it would be 30 seconds, And I thought, what a good idea. And so Lou said, well, he might. I don't know. Now, you got to realize, for me, Alfred Hitchcock was a god. Mm-hmm. He's still a god, but he was really like, it's like meeting Moses. And
Moses is shilling for God.
So I go to Hitch's bungalow, and Hilton's there. And Hitch had, in his bungalow, he had a little screening room with 8 big pushy chairs. He had his office, and then the reception. And then there was another office and 2 bathrooms. And then he had a tiny, about a quarter the size of this room, really quite small, dining room, or just a room, but they put a table in it with like 5 chairs around it. Mm-hmm. And he would he'd be driven to the studio every day. And this was really, I met Hitch, after Family Plot, and he was working on a movie called Night of the Long Knives that everyone knew would never get made, but they did. No one, but Mr. Wasserman just kept it going.
That never happens in Hollywood now.
For Hitch. Oh no! Listen, I had a building at Universal Studios for 24 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. I had no deal there.
They just let you keep it?
Out of that building, I made movies for Paramount, Warner Brothers, Disney, Polygram, and Universal. It was by the grace of Lou.
Wow.
That's a very different Hollywood. Hollywood, the movie business is completely in flux and changing. And now it's like everybody's rude and it's not the same.
Get out. We're done. Your movie, it aired a month ago. Get out.
No, there's a lot of non-returned phone calls and stuff. Anyway, so I'm going to have, in this room, 5 days a week, he would come to the studio. He'd be there at 9 a.m. He'd be driven right to his bungalow at 9 a.m. He'd go inside every day at 10 a.m. He'd watch a movie. He was up to date. I mean, he saw every movie released. Yeah, foreign, domestic, all movies. He saw everything. Anyway, and then he'd watch them by himself or with someone. And then he would do correspondence, and then he would work with David Friedman, I think. I can't think of his name. He wrote a very good book about working with Hitchcock in the last days of Alfred Hitchcock, which is the only thing I've ever read about the movie business where I was witness, and it's completely accurate.
Okay.
Wow.
It's about him working with Mr. Hitchcock, even though it's clear this movie's not going to get made. And it describes. But anyway, and Hitch would have lunch in this room, and every day he'd have, from the commissary, exactly the same thing. He'd have a small steak, which he called a fillet. He'd have a small steak, French fries, sliced tomatoes, and a very, very good bottle of wine from his own cellar, which after he died, Alma sold that for millions of dollars. He had an extraordinary collection of wine. Anyway, he would drink, I watched an entire bottle of wine by himself and not show anything. He was very large at this time, a little malshapen because he had terrible arthritis. It was hard for him to walk. His fingers are swollen. But I didn't know him. I mean, I knew of him, and I'd certainly, read Truffaut Hitchcock 9 million times and seen all his movies. And so now I'm going to meet Mr. Hitchcock. And so I have lunch with Hitch and Hilton, who often had lunch with him. And Hitch is sitting there very Buddha-like, eating, and he eats, and he drank. And finally, he said, well, I assume you talk, right? And I go, yes. He said, well, Lou tells me you want me to do something to promote a movie you're making. And I said, yes. And he said, well, tell me what it is. So I told him, I explained the whole thing. Now, you have to remember, how old am I? I'd already this is just before the Blues Brothers, so I guess I'm 29 or 30. And I have long hair, And I'm with Mr. Hitchcock and Hilton. This is, I swear to God, this is a true story. So I explained the thing to Hitch. And the first he thinks, and then he says, who's Lily Tomlin?
Oh.
I said, Mr. Hitchcock, but Lily's this was the height of her fame.
Yeah.
I said, Lily's a very famous comedian and a bit of a star. I've never heard of her. Totally deadpan. So I go, well, trust me, she's really well known. And she says, can't we get someone else?
Oh.
And I look over to Hilton, who's doing a complete Stan Laurel, like. So I said, well, no, it's a little late. And he said, well, and then he said something terribly rude. I won't go into that, which really shocked me. I mean, he said something very shocking and a sexual thing. And then after that, I convinced him that Lily was fair play, that this is a done deal. So he says, well, why is she on my desk? And I said, well, it's silly. It's not real. I don't have to create, a reality here. And he said, I have a better idea. And, the master. And I go, yeah, what? He says, what if I reached over and opened the drawer, and there's a tiny little toilet in my drawer, and Miss Tomlin is sitting on it, shitting.
What was his rationale?
I was like, and I look at Hilton, who's just totally, the Sphinx, just looking at me. And I'm dying. I'm like, what do you mean shitting? He goes, a bowel movement. And I said, wait, why do you have a toilet in your desk? And I forgot. Anyway, we talked about it for like 4 or 5 minutes, me tap dancing, desperately trying to talk him out of this weird. And then he laughed, and he was just having me on.
But he did not film your
he did, but he tortured me.
Right.
I was being tortured by Alfred Hitchcock, and he thought it was really funny.
But
finally,
Lou Wasserman was doing that to him on a much larger scale.
No,
right? You can make your movie. Maybe
he would have done it.
He would have made it.
He would have done it. What happened was moment by moment.
Interesting.
So he didn't. But then I made the Blues Brothers, and he sent me a really lovely note. He loved the Blues Brothers, and then about every couple of weeks or something, every third Thursday, something like that. But I had 15 or 16 lunches with him, and he was, I was really in awe of him. He was not approachable. Mm-hmm. He was not warm. I've been very lucky to meet a lot of my heroes, and like my wife and I, when we met Fellini in Rome, had meals with Fellini. Federico was warm and funny and open and charming and just everything you want, and he was approachable and hysterically funny. And my wife was hugely pregnant with our daughter, who's now 34, so that's how long ago that was. And the whole lunch, Fellini held her hand and kept telling her she had to have wine because it's good for the baby. Anyway, but he was so charming. And, after lunch, she says to me, he's a genius. But he was wonderful. He was, Hitch was kind of not warm, he was, but also I only knew him, he was old and not feeling well, but he could be really funny.
And did you guys just talk movies and stuff?
Pretty much.
True or false? Did you guys? I thought I read or heard somewhere that you had a conversation about Dress to Kill. Is there any truth to that?
I'm not sure it was Dress to Kill,
but it was a De Palma movie.
Yeah.
Did Hitch like De Palma?
I don't want to tell that story.
There's your answer.
Hitch hated De Palma.
No, he didn't know De Palma. He didn't like. There was a De Palma movie, and I don't remember which one it was. Mm-hmm. Could have been one of 5 or 6, but the critics, it was obviously a tribute to Hitchcock and in the style of, and so critics called it Hitchcockian, and the ad campaign had the word Hitchcockian in quotes, and Hitch did not like that. He was offended by that, and I, of course, I'll tell you the story. I said, Hitch, he's not stealing from you. It's an homage. And without hesitation, It said, "You mean fromage?"
Wow. I wonder if that's the first time that term was coined, the whole Hitchcockian thing.
Yeah, that's
just been a part of my vernacular.
It's saturated
No,
now.
it's got to be the Cahiers du Cinema or something.
I have no idea. No.
You don't think they were? I mean, they were valorizing him.
I just know that it was like, in quotes, spread across the ads.
It makes sense on a De Palma film.
Well, that's what he was doing.
What you should go consult the OED and see when the first use was for the next episode.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your wonderful acting career. I love when you show up in movies as cameos. I'm a big fan of filmmaker cameos, in particular Sam Raimi's movies. I argue that you're the same character in Darkman that you are in Spider-Man 2.
Could be true.
Shared universe.
Shared universe. You're the doctor.
Here's what Sam does. Sam's in a couple of my movies.
He's in Into the Night, and he's in both. In It's
no, he's not in Into the Night.
He's in Innocent Blood.
He's in Innocent Blood. And he's also in Spies Like Us. In fact, Sam and Joel Coen, before he was Joel Coen, are the guards at this place. They each have dialogue and stuff. But anyway, in fact, the other they're called spooks, the CIA guys that are kind of scary. This is just silly. And no one knows when they watch the movie, but it's just for me. It doesn't mean anything. But these guys, all with AKA 40, what are those called?
AK-47s.
Thank you, AK-47s and headsets, and they're all, guns in their belts and stuff. And there's dialogue with William Prince and Bruce Davison about, anyway. They're played by, the CIA spooks are played by Michael Apted, Marty Brest, Larry Cohen, and B.B. King.
Oh my gosh. I have to rewatch this scene
like
now.
the just co-heads of the DGA.
It just amuses the shit out of me. Spies has got a lot of film. My favorite is my best friend in the world, but who's in 5 or 6 of my movies. But his biggest part is in Spies. He plays a Soviet highway patrolman, is Costa Gavras.
Oh, wow.
He speaks pretty good Russian.
Well, the one that warmed my heart, because I actually did an article about my obsession with directors' cameos, and it's totally uncredited, but I was watching Coming to America a couple of years ago, and there's a great scene with, why am I forgetting his name? Not Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, preaching to Tobe Hooper. And I'm like, is that Toby? Oh my God, Tobe Hooper's in Coming to America.
It's one of my favorite things in that movie is that
and he's so perplexed by
at Mr. McDowell's house. One of the party guests is Tobe Hooper.
Yeah.
And he's referred to by name. Somebody goes, Toby, and he smiles and walks out of the shot.
Wow.
What was your favorite cameo to do in somebody else's movie? Because it's fun seeing you. Yeah, you.
I actually don't do cameo. I mean, I've been in a lot of movies, but the only cameos, I guess,
Into the Night.
Not one of the leads. I mean,
that's
sorry. Not a cameo.
I mean, you spend time without
but
pants on.
That's his movie,
yeah.
though. I love the fact that you guys would ask. I mean, putting Dario in Innocent Blood was like, it's just, things like that. I don't know why we nerd out.
Except for Animal House, who, by the way, several of that cast have become directors. But all of my movies have tons of directors. And for some reason, it was Into the Night they noticed.
Wow.
But people notice. But people never. It doesn't mean anything. It's just silly.
Silly fun.
I mean, Robert Wise made his motion picture debut as an actor, and he's really good in The Stupids. But anyway,
really, Robert Wise is in The Stupids?
Norman Jewison, Adam McGoyan, David Cronenberg.
Oh my God!
David Cronenberg is in The Stupids.
Well, Cronenberg's in a lot of
good
those
too.
movies.
Wow. He's great.
David's first role was in Into the Night. And what was interesting was after we finished, he came up to me and he said, "That was terrifying." And I said, "I know. No, it's a lot of directors really should do it to understand that intense pressure and to perform, in front of a camera." And he said, "That was horrific. I'm still shaking." And he's very good. He said, "I'm still shaking." And I said, "So will you have more sympathy for actors?" He said, "No, fuck them. They're out of their fucking mind." No, but David, by the way, has now acted in many movies.
Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah.
And I love when I see him in that stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Wait. Gillo Portocarvo's in The Stupid. Who else?
Wow.
A whole bunch of there's tons of directors. Did I mention Norman Jewison already?
And we need to revisit The Stupids.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
You know what? That's a movie that I think was unfairly treated. I mean, because it's got a very smart screenplay by Brent Forrester, who went on to be the head writer for The Simpsons for many years.
And that's based on the book series, correct?
Yeah, it's
I loved.
a G-rated movie. My intention, it was
your
show
schlock,
it to
your schlock.
8-year-olds.
Right.
No, Schlock actually has some violence in it. I wouldn't show to an 8-year-old. But The Stupids is truly for small children.
Yeah, it was when I was like 5 to 6. The Stupids were just the shit. They had a series of books called The Stupids Blow Up, The Stupids Go.
The Stupids Die.
The Stupids Die was one, and it's just a stupid family, and they have a dog named Kitty, and it's adorbs.
He's in the movie.
Oh, Kitty's in the movie. Excellent.
Well, you know, when it comes to the your contemporaries within the Masters of Horror, like we just mentioned Cronenberg and I just mentioned Argento, I'm curious which of them like really, I love hearing these stories. Which of them really wowed you with what they were doing with the genre? Because I remember Bill Lustig telling us the first time he saw a bird with a crystal plumage on 42nd Street, or Tom Holland was telling us when he saw Suspiria, he just couldn't, he couldn't comprehend what he was watching. You know,
that was probably because of the drugs.
Distinct possibility.
Very valid, very valid. Big smoker. But yeah, I mean, were there any of these guys that, because to me, and we talked about this with Mick, I love that that interview you did on Mick's show, where it's you, John Carpenter, and Cronenberg for his Z Channel show, and I think they used it on the Videodrome Blu-ray.
That wasn't for the Z Channel show, actually. Mick had a Z Channel show.
Right.
He had amazing people on that show, and that's a long time ago. No, that is probably one of the earliest infomercials, because
It was an infomercial?
Oh, it was all Universal.
what it was American Werewolf in London came out in 1981, and coming out in 82 were Videodrome from David and The Thing from John. So Mick pitched them the idea of doing an interview with us, and then that half hour was given for free to television stations.
Yeah.
So that actually that was a Universal promotion thing. And it was weird because I said, well, what am I doing here? My movie was last summer, you know.
Yeah, you were being treated like Alfred Hitchcock. But after show for other people's movies.
But that's okay. I love David and John. I think The Thing is I had an experience at the screening of in the Alfred Hitchcock Theater. They showed The Thing and and it was over, and I was like, yeah, and the whole audience went boos, but they hated it.
This was the Hitchcock Theater at Universal?
Yeah, it was brand new.
And sorry, but was it a bunch of executives who didn't get it?
It was the screening for the first public screening.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
the fans hated it when it came out.
The Thing was a disaster.
It was incredibly
I can't
panned.
fathom it now.
Read the reviews.
Yeah, if you go back, I still have all the early Fangorias. If you
They're
go back and
hateful.
read all the early Fangorias, there were letters about how bad it sucked. It didn't start getting love until a good
Years later.
6-7 years
Did
later.
you guys see the new remastered? You know how the ice used to always look blue? We saw it at the Egyptian, I don't know, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And it looks incredible. It's how
It's good.
I mean, you can never underestimate the ability of critics to not get something.
Oh my
but
God.
that is incredible. How that movie could not strike you immediately as a masterpiece.
American Werewolf got mostly very bad reviews.
Yeah, like that's what shocks me is like
Most of my pictures get bad reviews.
Well, you know what? You said that to me earlier, or when we had lunch, and so I was like, and Trading Places was the one where I was like, no effing way. I went on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's like an 82, but a lot of it is a little revisionist. I know. A lot of
it's revision.
A lot of it, but
was Trading Places not well
Trading
when it came
Places
out?
was liked by the people.
Okay.
But not. No, it was about 50-50.
Really?
Yeah, but Blues Brothers was hated. Animal House.
See, that's shocking.
Animal House was interestingly enough, Newsweek, for instance, gave it a terrible review, and 2 weeks later, John was on the cover of Newsweek. So that was such a success that even the people who shit on it had to go, oh well,
Well, I remember that when The Sixth Sense came out. Remember, everyone sort of was like, "Wow, they have a great twist," but it's another one of those it's Mercury Rising or whatever. It's another one of those movies, and then it had that commercial outcome, and people were like, whoa, 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 it's really good. And it has a Best Picture nomination. The
you know what happened to me when I saw Sixth Sense, which I really like that movie. But I made the mistake of seeing it with my wife. Deborah, who's a brilliant costume designer, she can see any monster movie, any ghost movie, but she will not see any psychotic killer movie. She won't see Toby's movie. She would, Texas Chainsaw or Psycho or any, Silence of the Lambs, because those are real. And unfortunately, they are real. So she will not see those. Anything fantasy, science fiction, she's there. But anyway, we're watching The Sixth Sense, and it had been on maybe 20 minutes when she turned to me and said, why doesn't Bruce Willis have any costume changes? And I realized, he's dead!
No!
Deborah.
Oh, my God.
And so
I never thought of that.
And then at the end of the movie, everyone went, and I'm thinking, what?
It would take a costumer to realize that, because I've seen that movie for 20 years now, and I never thought of that.
The other movie she ruined for me was The Crying Game. It was a huge thing. The Crying Game would just come out, and it was creating all kinds of sensation, and don't tell the secret, don't tell. And the movie starts, and Deborah leans to me and goes, she's a man. Look at his throat. Look at her. Look at his hands.
Because she's used to measuring that. No,
honestly,
I ruined A Beautiful Mind when I was a senior in college, because people would come out. It came out that
many beautiful minds.
That would be more. I ruined minds. But people would come up to me and be like, you look just like the imaginary friend from A Beautiful Mind.
Oh, no.
And it would just, because I was in a Paul Bettany phase, and it was just everyone within earshot would be like, bro, I didn't say it, they said it. Anyway.
Do you know what that reminds me of? I once had people literally, it was so surreal. This was, 15 years, I don't know, whenever it was. What was that show where it went up to $1 million?
Oh, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
That was the question.
Yeah.
So I had people literally on the street drive by and go, hey, fuck you! And I'm like, what? And it turned out the night before, the guy was at $1 million, and the question was, who directed Thriller? Francis Ford Coppola, John Landis, or Marty Scorsese. So he called his friend, and his friend said, Scorsese. So he said Scorsese, and he lost it. Yeah. And so people were mad at me.
No, he deserved it for not knowing that.
Yeah.
That's my call.
But people were mad.
Well, to be fair, it's a good category of people to be in. I mean, I feel like the flattery of adjacency to Scorsese.
But the point, Cooper, is that I was being unfairly maligned because of
over that game.
You were being Paul Bettany. No, I know.
Well, since you brought that up,
I want to know what their role is.
I
know what
John, for the listeners.
We have interns in the room that wanted to sit in on the episode.
Yes.
Okay, they occasionally sit in to see what we're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay,
They're
John?
learning.
Wow, we're really taking the curtain back for viewers.
You should see this setup. Blumhouse must have a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
We're in the conference room. It's it's very warm.
Yes. It's very amber glow in here.
Well, I started off when we first started. We started talking about Thriller, and you mentioned it again. And it's coming out in 3D again, or what's happening?
I don't know. I actually don't know what's happening now, but I was able. We settled the lawsuit. I've been suing them for many years.
Who's them? Who owns it?
It was Michael. Then it became Michael Jackson's estate.
Okay.
And finally they settled it. And so I was given access to the negative again. It's always bothered me because Thriller is gorgeous looking, but there are no good quality copies of it anywhere.
Yep.
If you see it on the internet, it looks like shit.
It's always taped from MTV.
It's always, well, also what happened was, it's such a long, boring story, but it was a very good decision for the record company and for Michael. Not so good for me, but my deal was it had to be released theatrically, and it was, briefly. But a guy named Frank DeLeo, who's passed away now, Frank was Michael's manager at the time. And I actually kind of liked him. He was a real Guido. He looked like a mob guy. So much that he's in Goodfellas as one of the crew. Yep.
So it wasn't just
he's the one, he's tubby with a ponytail. And he was Michael's manager, one of the many, many managers that went through this revolving door. I dealt with half of them. Anyway, he saw how people responded to the video, so he duped it himself and made like 2,000 copies on quarter-inch tape and sent it to every TV station in the world and said, play this for free. And do you remember when it was all Thriller all the time?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it was exclusively on Showtime for 2 weeks and then for a month MTV, and then everybody in the world was showing it. Well, it boosted album. In fact, the most successful album of all time then tripled its sales. So it was the right thing to do for them, but it fucked me because then it couldn't play in theaters. So it's always bothered me that it's such, that Robert Painter, the cameraman, did such a good job. It's so good looking. And it doesn't look that good when you see it. So I wanted to be able to, now you can really clean up the negative. Well, the negative turned out to be in perfect condition.
Yeah, get a nice HD release of it.
And so I did. I restored it, and we converted it to 3D, and we remixed it in Atmos. We rebuilt all the tracks. It's a 10. I'm so happy with it. It had its world premiere last summer at the Venice Film Festival, and it's been shown once in all the major cities in the world to Michael Jackson fans as a promotion for their last record release that I don't even know. The
Frank DeLeo from Beyond the Grave,
Frank
is still trying to.
Frank called me about 5 years ago. He was living in, I think, Memphis or Nashville then. And he called me to tell me it was me. I'm sorry, it was me.
Just out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
Like he was brushing his teeth one morning and suddenly felt really bad about it.
I think he knew he was ill because he died 6 months later.
Oh.
Wow. I want to be on someone's deathbed apology call. I feel like that's winning.
I got a brief letter from Doug Kenny, and I got it 4 days after he died.
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was
funny.
Weird. It was funny. He said he was coming to L.A., but that's why I don't think he killed himself.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really? Well, that feels like a Blumhouse movie right there. Like, a stupid and futile gesture is totally wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie is the worst wigs in motion picture history.
Now, was that deliberate bad wigs, or maybe Deborah could tell us?
I think that they did that intentionally. Yeah, it was a little
I think you're
too
being
bad.
kind.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, because
The movie was so off about everything. And Doug was a brilliant guy. In the movie, he's kind of a bumbling moron.
Yeah, he does seem to kind of just be rolling with the punches and going with the flow of everything.
He was smart. And also the movie, it was a silly movie and wrong.
And so are we going to be able to see that Thriller that you restored?
Well, what
happened to
happened
it?
was they wanted to release it last Halloween with the movie that I didn't approve of.
Oh.
So...
theatrically before something.
Yeah, with Saw 26.
Oh, wow. What a weird
whatever. So
combo.
I looked at
That is a very strange combo.
I looked at the movie and I said, this is torture porn, and why would you want to put Thriller with this?
I'm sure they were doing it to bolster Saw. more
Like
than
I would have
anything.
seen it. I would have seen it. Saw it.
It would have been,
in 3D.
it would have been like Meet Joe Black. All the people who wanted to see the Phantom Menace trailer,
Oh,
so
yeah,
they went
yeah.
and bought tickets to
Exactly.
Meet Joe Black.
Well, actually, so they have it now, and it's they own it. I have no control of it, but I'm very happy to say it's gorgeous and beautifully restored. And they screened it at the Chinese theater. It was great.
I think if Ryan Turek were here,
He would-
what he would say is, John, Halloween is coming out this year.
That's
Maybe
true.
if you approve of Halloween.
Call John Branca.
Is it Lionsgate?
No, it's the Michael Jackson
Michael
estate.
Jackson
Oh, their state.
Yeah.
Oh no! But you said they wanted to pair it with Saw or whatever.
Oh no,
Because
no.
Saul was going to pay a lot of money.
Gotcha. All right.
By the way,
Okay.
we won't pay, but we won't be as bad as Jigsaw.
And did that include the making of was made for somebody else? Because I was always concerned that they never could pair them together.
Well,
Yeah.
it was sold. What happened was when Michael called me to do a film or a video for his cut Thriller, the album had already been #1 for over a year. It was already the best-selling album of all time, and now it was going down a bit. And he called me because he wanted to turn into a monster, and I was intrigued, and I went and I said, hey, let's do a short, and he was into it, and blah, 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 blah. So I wrote it, and then we budgeted it, and every union shoot, and I wanted the dancers to have serious rehearsal, and which all costs money, and a big makeup call, and all this stuff. And we figured it would cost about $500,000. And to give you an idea, this union too, and to give you an idea, at that point, rock videos were made for $35,000. Beat It was a very expensive video at $48,000.
Had the light up floor. That had to cost
That's
something.
Billy Joel.
Oh, that's Billy Joel. Thank you. Beat It
Billie
was
Jean.
Subway.
Billy,
Yes.
Yeah, Billy Jean.
no, Beat It was not
Beat It was,
Subway.
what was the one?
Beat It was with the gangs.
The gangs, yeah.
Bad was Subway.
Bad was the Subway. There you go.
Bad
Years
Subway.
later.
You're right.
Yes,
You're
you
right.
need to brush up
And that
on
cost,
do.
that cost a lot more
Yeah.
money. And that was directed by Marty Scorsese.
Oh my God. Okay.
But anyway, so, Michael calls the head of CBS and Sony, CBS, what's his name? Walter Yetnikoff, and says, Walter, here, talk to John, and hands the phone to me. And this guy, who I still haven't met, screamed at me. I can't exaggerate. It was like flames coming from the, it was your mother sucks cocks in hell.
Yeah.
He was like screaming, if you think you're fucking way there. Yeah. And, so I'm like holding the phone up. And I go, here, Michael. I give it back to Michael. And Michael says, what did he say? He said no. Because they felt, the record company felt, look, we already have the biggest record of all time. Next. Yeah. Work on your next album. What are you doing? Don't, this is gone, over. Thank you. And so one of the things Thriller did, not intentionally, but it made MTV. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It did many things, but when it went on television, it tripled the album sales. Tripled. The best-selling album of all time. So it proved the effectiveness. Plus, I got the making of Thriller, which is 45 minutes, and Thriller is 15 minutes, which equals
an hour. Fill the hour slot.
Exactly. George Folsey had the idea. My partner had the idea. Why don't we film us filming it? And that we can sell that hour. And we did. We sold to Showtime, and then Bob Pittman at MTV called up screaming, saying, you can't show it on Showtime before us. We made Michael Jackson, and I had to remind him, no, actually, your policy was not to play African-American acts. And Walter Yetnikoff forced you to play Michael Jackson.
That was still a policy?
Michael's the first black act to be on MTV.
Wow. Now, we're making of videos.
We were the first.
I was going to say, that's really innovative at the time.
It had never been done. And there'd been like little production stuff for features and things. But it had never been done. And so we used to call it the making of filler. Because
45 minutes of filler.
Because it had to be 45 minutes. That's why it actually turned out, Jerry Kramer, it turned out very, very well. But if you look at it, it's like, okay, I own American Werewolf. We can use that for free. Michael, what do you own? And I went and I found that wonderful piece of film where little Michael Jackson, 8 years old, dancing. That was in their closet. I found 8mm. Wow. And then Can You Feel It, which they had done for a Jackson 5 tour.
That's right.
The Robert Abel film. I said, do you own that? Yeah. That goes in there, we just, anything we could get for free. And during, just before we shot was the Motown 25th anniversary.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
So I called Barry
Where
Gordy.
Did the moonwalk.
And I said, we want that. And he was like, you can't have it. So I said, Michael, you call. So, because that's an extraordinary, that's a great pice of footage because you see Michael in front of an audience and it's, it's incredible. It's like the Tammy Show where you see James Brown or Otis Redding at Monterey Pop. Certain performances that are like, holy shit.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think it's great. And it was the first time I knew who you were and Rick Baker, and I see him doing makeup, and I'm like, that's how they do all that. So it was a very, maybe 8.
Yeah, I think I was 7 at the time.
I've told the story before, but I saw that video, and then my grandmother, who I would stay with, the back of her property, there was a fence and then a cemetery. And so I was terrified to sleep there because of your video.
I grew up in Westwood Village.
Yeah.
Not in Westwood Village, near Westwood Village in L.A. You know the Veteran Cemetery?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
My parents' backyard went down a hill, and then there was the Veteran Cemetery.
Wow.
Any night it was foggy, I was like, I don't want to stay here tonight.
That is the second most expensive publicly owned real estate in America. Can you guess what the first is?
What?
Central Park.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Good God.
But the Veteran Cemetery is the second most. Can you imagine if you could develop that?
When I was,
you're right. Good access to the highway. That's ideal.
When I was a kid,
no more nightmares.
About 30% of it was empty, and by my house, by Kashmir over there were huge forests of eucalyptus and pine, and we had forts in there, and I learned to ride a bike in the Veteran Cemetery. We used to. Anyway,
there's a great Michael Chabon piece that the reader should look about wilderness, about the absence of wilderness in kids' lives now. The kids don't get to roam and feel like they're alone and not monitored by their parents. But
I fear for kids today. But
I always wonder about that because I grew up. I mean, I'm from Virginia wilderness. Like we had acreage, and you could scream in the middle of it. No one, including my parents back at the house, would hear any of it. But my daughter now in Burbank, I think about the fact that we let her ride her bike maybe a little bit. But and we have 2 trees in our yard. So
but everything's different. I mean,
it is.
When I grew up, I was born in 1950, and so I'm literally a child of the 60s. I was my teenage. In the 60s, we used to hitchhike everywhere to San Francisco all the time, to Tijuana. We just hitchhiked everywhere. And, by the time I had my kids, it was like, you are never hitchhiking.
Oh, my gosh.
No, absolutely.
Well, before we move past Thriller, when it got huge and I had seen the video on MTV, it became my favorite thing in the entire world. And I begged my parents to buy the album. And at the time, I was in ballet classes, which you do when you're a girl in suburbia. And
in Virginia.
And I begged.
Picking out the deer ticks.
Deer ticks. They're big motherfuckers. Anyway, so I begged my dance teacher to let us dance to Thriller in the actual recital that year. And she didn't, but she went back, watched the whole video repeatedly, and taught my 7-year-old class the entire Thriller dance. And so we got to perform it just for parents in the room. And I was still so bummed. But I loved that video so much. It was definitely, it bridged a gap for me because at that time I was, in elementary school, I was into Madballs and kind of horror light. Something Wicked This Way Comes became my mantra. But then that was probably the first time that I really saw zombies on television and was like, I fucking love this. And that was my full immersion right there.
Now, wasn't the Epcot Center
They did the 3D.
They did the 3D.
Captain EO.
Captain
which was
EO.
Coppola.
Yeah.
Coppola.
I loved the little dude with the long tails.
Disneyland had the Captain EO. Yeah. Francis Coppola, the other wrong.
Coppola.
The other wrong answer.
And George Lucas, I think, wrote it.
He produced it.
Why, considering that was the most successful music video of all time, it was number one when they do these top 100 countdowns. Is there, and I hope this isn't a loaded question, but was there any reason that you never collaborated with Michael again? I mean, we could probably do a whole show on Michael.
Well, actually,
I did. About his heart,
I did. I actually directed what had the largest TV audience in history at that point.
Was it black and white?
Black and white. I can still sing
that
rap.
was Macaulay Culkin, right?
Yeah.
Right, and the face morph.
And I can still sing the rap from like the central part. For some reason, it has stuck with me for years. And occasionally, I'll just be like, "Hey, guy, yeah, you got."
But was he a dude that did you consider him like a friend? Like, because Michael Jackson, much like Hitchcock, is just this personality. So, like,
no. First of all, I'm old enough now, and it's such a bizarre thing when someone you know well, a friend or a relative, but someone you really know well dies, and then they become mythological.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, Doug Kenny, John Belushi, Michael Jackson. I mean, I know too many dead people. David Bowie, who's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And what's with the Band-Aid? I feel like the leitmotif of the Band-Aid
I'll tell you, that's
recurring
actually
thing.
a funny story, which is that David showed up in L.A. for his part in Into the Night, and he plays like a really sleazy British hitman killer guy. And I said to Deborah, the costume designer, he said, I want him to look sleazy. And so she went to the costume, get all this stuff. She pulled tons of used clothes and all kinds of stuff, and had racks of clothes to try on David to make him look kind of creepy, sleazy.
Couldn't get there.
She called me and she said, John, no matter what I put on David, he looks great.
We call it the Bowie effect.
Cannot deglam.
I know. No matter what I put on this guy, he looks great. So I said, well, then just give him a really ugly tie and make his coat too big for him and just, so he shows up and I look at him and I go, you fucker, I mean, he looked great. So I said, okay, you shoot in 2 days. Don't shave. Which is now a look, actually. The way David looks in that movie is now the way people look. Anyway, I said, don't shave. And then he shows up. And he had that wonderful, he had two different color eyes.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at him going, put grease in his hair. So they put grease in his hair, and he looks great. So I go, give me an eye patch. And we put an eye patch on him. And it looked too silly. He looked like a, R.
Yeah.
And do you know why pirates are so mean? They just are. My daughter at 7 told me that.
I will be sharing that with my 5-year-old tonight. Thank you.
You can also, your 5-year-old, you can ask him why 6 is afraid of 7.
Because 7, 8, 9.
Yes.
Oh, but that's...
Anyway, so I just said, okay, take the eye patch off. And then I thought, put a Band-Aid on him. It was just anything. And, David was so just naturally elegant. Very much, Fred Astaire and Michael Jackson and David Bowie all had the same measurements. Mm-hmm. And they were very thin. They were like clothes horses,
Really? Well, it does look like the Band-Aid makes him look like he's just really worried about getting an infection. It just...
I always thought something slightly off. There's a story there. It's just slightly off enough that you're like,
well, okay,
Band-Aid.
I got a Michael Jackson story. So we're shooting black or white, and one of the PAs, this kid had fallen off. He rode his bike around town, and he fell, and he came to work wearing this white... what are they called? Not an ace bandage, but it was like a
compression bandage.
Like a gauze thing.
No, it wasn't gauze. It was material, and then you laced it up. It was like a corset almost, but it was for your arm. It was
what you get when you break something and they take the heavy cast off.
And
you get that next.
He was wearing this thing, and I'm talking to Mike, and this kid walks by, and Michael says, "Wait, what's that?" The kid said, "Well, I fell off my bike," and Michael goes, "Can I take it off?" And we're looking at him, and he puts it on. And he says, can I have this? And I said, wait a minute, Michael, I want to wear this. I want to wear it in the video. I said, just a minute. He said, so let's go ask Deborah. And we go to Deborah, and I'm thinking Deborah's going to say, no, you can't wear it. And Deborah said, yeah, sure you could wear it. And he was very happy. And I said to her,
is this in the video?
He wears it.
Yeah.
And
But did he take it from this kid?
Yeah.
Oh.
So the kid's walking around with like a broken arm.
We actually gave money and said, okay, your first job is go get another band. Anyway, and then what Deborah said, and she was right, is it'll become, because Michael's wearing it, it'll be a fashion accessory. And there was a whole time when they were selling them.
Oh, my God.
People were wearing it.
Oh, my gosh. I'm looking at the video.
Little kid.
Wow. I'm staring at the video.
But that's
right
it.
now.
Like,
By the way,
that's,
I think all 25 of the listeners.
Oh, yes.
have gone to the internet right now.
Yeah.
Just to see the
wait a
pictures
second.
of this.
yeah, at least 25, John.
And I
At least
wonder if that
25
little
listening
kid.
right now.
I wonder if that PA is walking around knowing his influence on culture.
Okay, I got a good story that just happened a week ago Monday. So not the last Monday, but the Monday before, was the Academy nominee luncheon, which is a wonderful event. It's the two best things the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences does is the nominee luncheon and the Governor's Awards, because they're not televised. It's just, they're really fun events. In the Governor's Awards, everybody knows who's getting the Governor Award, so you're all there to celebrate, and it's really fun. And the nominee luncheon, everybody in the room is nominated, and they're all treated very well, and it's very exciting, and you get to meet everybody, and it's like a gab fest. And my wife is on the board of governors, and so she goes to this stuff, and I love going to those two events. I won't go to the Oscars with her, because that's better on TV.
Agreed.
But anyway, have you been to the Oscars?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's boring. Better on TV. Anyway, although you get to see a lot of cosmetic surgery up close.
Oh.
So anyway, at that luncheon, this young guy comes up to me and says, Mr. Landis? And I say, yeah. And I see that he's a nominee. And his name just went out of my... Virgil or
Virgil
Victor?
Williams. Virgil Williams from Mudbound.
Yes, how do you know that?
I have a steel trap.
How do you know that really?
I mean, I know that Virgil. I was just completing the word. Well,
the story is Virgil Williams comes up to me, introduces himself, and he's nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay for Mudbound. And I said, oh, congratulations. And he said, I just really wanted to thank you. I'm thinking, all right, well, And he said, I'm in the Blues Brothers. And I look at him, he's probably...
Yeah, he's young.
He's probably in his late 30s, early 40s. And I said, really? Well, what'd you play? He was one of the orphans.
No way.
And so when I got home, I looked up stills, and he has the same face.
Wow.
There's a picture of all the orphans with Cab Calloway at the steps of the orphanage, and there he is. At 8 years old, he has the same face still.
That's
Isn't that
amazing.
cool?
That's amazing.
That's really cool.
Now, what? No, not to hijack the interview a little bit, but what? Reviewing some of your movies, it feels like your movies are in dialogue with race to a degree that was not super common at the time. And whether it's obviously Trading Places is the obvious one, but was that a specific priority of maybe Baby King and was that a priority of yours that was deliberate, or was that was that imprinted upon you by your parents? Was it where did that come from?
Well, of course it's deliberate. Oh my God, there's so many black people in the room. I was with Eddie Murphy. I looked at him and said, "You're a Negro."
Oh my God.
Holy shit. No, I grew up in West LA of classic liberal secular Jews. My parents were. My dad died when I was very little, but my mom and my stepfather were, Adley. My dad actually was an Adlai Stevenson guy, classic liberals. And my sister was a freedom rider in the South. And, no, it's not. And, one of my proudest accomplishments is so silly that I didn't talk about it really till the last couple of years because I didn't want to say anything. But when Eddie Murphy came to me and he had this story idea that really it was like Cinderella. The idea was an African prince comes to America to find his queen. And that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
I went home and I said to Deborah, what do you think of this? And Deborah immediately got excited and said, because, she designed the costumes for Coming to America.
Which are crazy cool.
And so, well, actually, have you seen Black Panther?
Yeah.
Those countries are very close to each other. Anyway, it's cool, Black Panther. Anyway, what I realized, because Deborah was talking, we both were talking about trying to flesh it out, because it's just a fairy tale. It's just a very slight romantic. It's very much like what's that? Oh gosh, Lubitsch movie, Naughty Marietta, something with Jeanette MacDonald and Maurice Chevalier. I can't think of the name. Anyway, but it's this fantasy. The thing is that...
is that with the sword scene? The sword where he goes in?
I don't know.
You heard that Billy Wilder has a story about that scene where he goes, where she's having an affair and with Maurice Chevalier and the husband comes up with
MacDonald.
Comes up with the sword and the audience is not in the room, so they don't see what's happening. And Maurice Chevalier comes. I think I'm butchering this Billy Wilder story, but you're wondering what happened. Maurice Chevalier goes into the room. You think, oh my God, he's going to catch them, and then he walks out a few minutes later, and he puts on his belt again, and he realizes it doesn't fit. He realizes it's not his belt, and then you realize, oh, the jig is up. You're getting caught. But it was like an incredibly elliptical, witty way of telling the story.
That's very Lubitsch. Yeah. Billy Wilder had when he had to leave the Goldwyn lot, he had an office on Little Santa Monica and Beverly Hills but in his little office, there was a sign, and apparently he always had that sign in his office, and it said, "What would Lubitsch do?"
Really, the Lubitsch touch, I think, is what he coined.
Everybody called it. Paramount called it. They advertised it. Anyway, we totally
Coming to America costumes.
Coming to America.
Yeah. The point was
Black Panther.
The point that we came to really was, wait a minute, this is Cinderella's kingdom. And it's African. We can create an African kingdom, a fantasy fairy tale black kingdom. And that became very exciting because it wouldn't be Ludwig's castle from Bavaria, those Disney. It would be African, but fairy tale African. And then when I sat with Eddie and then especially Barry Blaustein and David Shetfield, who actually wrote the movie, but we were all talking it out. I came very quickly to the thing, and I couldn't discuss it with anyone, so I called my wife. Is that Paramount was... I've made 2 movies this way, one for Universal, one for Paramount. This would never happen now. Where the heads of the studios said to me, can you have this movie in theaters by August? In each case, there was no script. There was an idea and the stars. One was Blues Brothers and one was Coming to America, which is why those movies are so lavish, because there is no pre-production. Both of those movies were being shot before there was a finished screenplay.
So you're just throwing everything at the screen as you go along?
No, I'm just doing it, which means nobody's fighting. Right. So when I make,
it's your Westworld.
So in Coming to America, it's not in the script, but I said, hey, let's have a dance number here.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, because I got to do it.
And do you feel like that kind of jazz style of filmmaking in a weird way contributed to the success of those movies? That they were looser and less, they weren't overthought? Or did you wish you had pre-production?
No, I wish I had
pre-production.
Okay. In fact,
can we just romanticize it a little?
In the Blues Brothers, well, that's a long story, but the Blues Brothers, from the day I got a green light to the day it opened in theaters was 9 months.
You're kidding.
And Coming to America was 6 months.
My God. It feels like such a polished film.
From the last day of principal photography. Well, first of all, we had 2 teams of editors. We were not only cutting during shooting, we were scoring and mixing during shooting. From the last day of principal photography, we had to give them at least 2 weeks. We had 3 weeks till it opened in like 8,000 theaters because they had to make the prints. Technicolor had to make the prints. Different now.
Well, I feel like that's how we used to. But that's how. Isn't Anatomy of a Murder? They shot it in March and it came out in July. Like,
well, that was but that's an interior courtroom.
Right.
By the way, that's a good movie.
Oh, I love that movie. It's very long. It's very long.
I just remember how unbelievable what's her name is. She's in Face in the Crowd.
Yeah.
It's
not Stanwyck. It's who is?
Got me on this one.
Yeah.
It's not a cannibal movie.
Look up Face in the Crowd.
Face in the Crowd.
Which was her first movie.
Lee
Remick.
Right.
There we go.
Well, Face in the Crowd, I feel like nobody can watch anymore after what's going on in this country.
Well, actually, you watch Face in the Crowd and Network, and they're so prescient, it's kind of extraordinary.
Yeah. Networks, it still bothers me.
Oh, Face in the Crowd. Check that out.
Face in the Crowd.
That's a great film, and people forget that Andy Griffith was a truly great actor.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, so to finish my story...
So did they not give you notes?
Notes. I was shooting.
No. But on the cut, it was like.
Yes. Yeah. Well, one of the weirdest things about Coming to America, it's different than Blues Brothers. But Coming to America, we never had a preview. I never had a screening.
You're kidding.
Coming to America.
You didn't know how Jerry Curls was going to play?
Well, I knew how it would play. The thing is that movie, which I'm very proud of, I think is about 15 minutes too long. If I could have just tightened it up, but there was no time.
No, I don't.
Do you have the stems? We have an editing.
Post-production facility here. We'll take care of it.
When Paramount did the Blu-ray, they came to me and said, would you do a director's cut? I said, yes. And they said, well, we have to locate any out. No. I just give me the picture as it is. I just want to make some lifts. And the guy said to me, the picture's made like $900 million. It's perfect. And it's not. It's a little too slow.
Did they not let you do it?
Mm-mm.
You're kidding.
They don't spend money unless they,
I know, but I mean...
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
What would you cut out?
$900 million.
Anyway, no, I would just tighten it up. It just certain
Bits and
scenes
pieces,
play too long, and there's In any case, the point that we keep managing to avoid, that I was thrilled with, was that I realized I'm making a movie. It had something like 52 speaking parts, and 3 of them were white people. It was an almost entirely African-American movie, and what no one, even really now, but no one ever at the time said, I knew because it was a romantic, Eddie was a huge star, and the movie was a romantic comedy. And comedy, and of course there's African-American cultural jokes and stuff, but the movie, the plot of the movie is just this simple, very simple story. And I realized every Hollywood film, not independent, but every studio picture up to that picture, if it had a black lead or black characters in lead roles, they were story points. Sidney Poitier was, the black guy. Right. Even Eddie was the black guy in Trading Places. I mean, it was a story point, their color.
Right.
And in Coming to America, their color has fuck all to do with anything,
Yeah.
And so I realized I'm making a black movie that people will not see as a black movie necessarily. And that's completely what happened. Nobody mentioned it. Nobody noticed it. It was a colossal hit all over the world. And I'm reading now about Black Panther, will it do well overseas? Well, Coming to America made like $500 million overseas.
Art Buchwald won't let anyone forget.
Yeah.
Art Buchwald, that case, I have to tell you, I was shooting a commercial at Disney World when I got a call from my attorney, and the guy told me, you're part of a lawsuit. Art Buchwald's suing you. Art Buchwald is? Why is Art Buchwald? And it turned out when I got into it, it wasn't Art Buchwald. It was the producer. Art Buchwald, the case had no merit at all. And what people still don't know is he lost. He won the preliminary hearing.
Oh, really?
He won the preliminary hearing. Art had written a column, he had columns, and he'd written a satirical column in which an African prince, no, I'm sorry, he wasn't African, he was Arab. An Arab prince comes to America, and a CIA woman seduces him and marries him, and at the end the CIA stages a coup, and at the end he has no money and he works in McDonald's. Right. And so this is a column. So the similarities are Prince comes to America, works at McDonald's. Right. Mm-hmm. His name was Bernheim. I'm trying to think of his first name. Alain Bernheim was a French producer who optioned that column and went to Paramount years before, and made a deal for a movie based on that column. Never happened. Right. But the deal was something like $100,000 fee and net points.
Right.
So when coming to America, now I've made a lot of movies. Mm-hmm. Every movie I've made that made $100 million, so that's, 7 movies, lawsuits.
Who's counting?
Lawsuits.
Every movie I made that did not make a lot of money.
There were no Into the Night lawsuits?
No lawsuits. No lawsuits.
It is the blood lawsuits.
So I'm very suspicious of all these things. and anyway, but the truth is some people do feel genuinely ripped off. They go, that was my idea, because it probably was. Yeah. They just didn't make a movie.
Right.
Anyway, what happened was the first judge found in Buchwald, although Buchwald wasn't it was Bernheim, but right. Buchwald found in his favor, which meant he got $100,000.
Right.
And they said, okay, here are the points. And Paramount said, there are no net points.
They didn't make any money.
Well, no, they didn't say it didn't make money. People don't understand it. When all of them are crooked, all the studios, including Blumhouse, all of them play fast and loose. It's the movie business.
Yeah.
But my favorite line in Kentucky Fried Movie is when the British Secret Service guy is explaining to the Bruce Lee character who the evil Dr. Klon is, and he says something like he's in every sort of nefarious, evil activity, prostitution, dope smuggling, motion picture distribution. Anyway, but what happened was if there's gross players, if someone has gross points, net points are worthless. Right. Eddie Murphy referred to them in court as monkey points, which didn't score him any points. Yeah. But the thing is that because the more money it makes, the more it goes to the gross players, the further away the net becomes. So the good news is they raised such hell because they kept saying, how is it you say it didn't make money when it's made all this money? The court forced Paramount to open their books, which meant Eddie and I both got a lot more money, especially Eddie. But we got much more money.
So Bernheim, you should have sent him a little.
Well, actually, he's not a bad guy. It's just that the case was without merit. Yeah. Actually, the best story as part of that, this has nothing to do with anything, but I'm shooting this huge commercial at Disney World. It was years ago. How many, say it's 89, I don't know when it was. But they were about to open the MGM Disney. It was called MGM Disney. Their theme park that's Hollywood now, or called something else now, in Orlando. And so Mike Eisner called me. Michael had me go down there, and I shot for like 4 weeks, just tons of stuff at the parks and stuff, and they still use that footage. Really? Did you ever see the shot of Mickey on the geodesic dome?
Yeah.
I shot that. Wow. I shot the big premiere with all the characters. Anyway, I had fun, although Orlando is hell.
That's a big help, though.
So anyway, I get this call, and they come to me. This is, no cell phones. They're payphones. Right. And this, PA or AD says, John, there's a call for you. So we're shooting in Fantasyland. So I go over to the phone. I swear this is a true story. I go to the phone. It's a long time ago. And I pick up the phone, and my lawyer tells me that I'm party to this lawsuit. By the way, I was cut off from it. I didn't.
Right.
So it didn't affect me other than make me upset for like an hour. So I get this call. I'm talking to my attorney, and I'm very upset, because this potentially could cost me a lot of money just in lawyer fees. And I said, doesn't Paramount have to indemnify me? And is there any merit? What the hell is that? What law? What column? And so I'm in this, where the payphones were like this tunnel thing where everyone parked their baby strollers. Mm-hmm. And this guy comes up to me, and he's with his autograph book. And he says, Mr. Spielberg, would you please sign this? And I said, just a minute, Joel. I said, I really appreciate that you recognize me, but I'm not Steven Spielberg. Okay? And I go back on the phone, and the guy says, oh, come on. Close Encounters changed my life. I saw Jaws 100 times. E.T. is like my, he went on and on. And I stopped it. Joel, just a minute. And I said, look, if I see Steven Spielberg, I'll tell him. But I swear to God, I'm not Steven Spielberg. And I go back on the phone, and he starts going, oh, big fucking Hollywood millionaire. You get rich, and you don't care about the little. And he's screaming at me. And I said, I'm not Steve Spielberg. Go away. And finally, I just grabbed it. And I went, what's your name? And I forgot his name, Bob or something. So I wrote, fuck you, Bob, Steven Spielberg. Yes. And I gave it to him, and he was like, thank you. He walked away.
Wow.
And to this day, he thinks he met Steven Spielberg at Epcot.
That asshole Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. Somebody mentions the Post, and they go, oh, he's an asshole. Yeah.
Well, we could go on and on, but you've already given us a lot of. You have a question. I was going to wrap up.
I have two questions before we go. Two quick ones.
Look at all this. Okay, go ahead. I want John's question.
How long have you been doing this podcast?
Literally years. It started.
5 years?
It started as another show called Killer POV, and then Blumhouse picked up Killer POV, and we became Shockwaves, and we've been here for about 2 years now.
We're 2 of the 4 hosts. We're down 2 people.
Yeah,
so we're not even getting the full. One is sick, and one just finished shooting the Halloween movie for them. So
Ryan just finished Halloween.
Yep,
he's recovering. His immune system is recovering.
The director?
No,
he's the producer.
He works on the development side of Blumhouse.
Why are you curious about our credentials?
Because I'm fascinated by the whole podcast thing.
It's basically just radio shows.
Yeah, it's radio
today's
shows.
modern version of a radio show. Yeah. Everything comes around again. You know, like now all these streaming services are looking for...
But do these guys, Jason and Couper, make you mention Get Out?
No, they never actually. That was when we started this. That was one thing that we said is we didn't want to have to always talk positively.
I'm more than happy to critique these movies.
Yeah,
true.
so
Rob's a real asshole.
Yeah,
not like Spielberg level asshole.
No. I think John and I would get along because I'm an asshole.
John. Listen, I'm
just candid.
I'll tell you a Psycho story.
I would.
I
would love it.
Psycho story.
So
I love your performance in Psycho for the beginning, quite frankly.
Well, I get to hold up the phone and say,
yes,
like that.
That's pretty cool.
See, you missed that, those of you listening.
He mouthed the words Norman Bates.
Incredible pantomime.
Yes.
Anyway, you know why I'm in that movie?
Well, from what Mick told me, you were friends with Perkins and put in a good word for him.
I get a call from Hilton Green.
Yeah.
And he says, we're going to do a Psycho movie. I said, another Psycho movie? Which, by the way, the people who do Bates Motel television series owe Mick Garris and Joe Stefano money.
Yes.
Because it's completely the same thing. And it was... Have you ever seen Psycho? Oh, of course you have.
Yeah. Of course.
What's interesting about Psycho 4, there's a framing story that's completely stupid.
The radio show?
But then there's a flashback. Is most of the movie is a flashback. And it's excellent.
The flashbacks, they're
prequel.
Beautiful because they talk about his mother when he's a boy.
Olivia Hussey plays his mother.
She's awesome.
And she's awesome.
Juliet
and
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas plays the young Norman Bates, and he's terrific. Then there's the framing story, which is really dumb.
Well,
But-
by the way, the original Psycho, I mean, that last scene in the original Psycho is
Wonderful.
Wonderful. You mean the explanation?
The explanation.
The reason.
Oh, you mean the fly? The fly?
No. That's brilliant.
No,
Yeah.
the police,
You mean the
Yeah.
psychiatrist.
Oh, okay.
But the truth is, that was shot because people were so disturbed at the preview and wanted some explanation. And I actually think it's not as egregious as you do. When was the last time you saw Psycho?
Oh, gosh. Within the last 5 years.
That
probably.
movie's almost
Yeah,
perfect.
I watch it almost every year.
And well, you're deeply sick.
Yeah.
But the last
Psycho 4, as he was.
No argument.
I like Psycho 3.
The last shot of that, when Tony looks up and that mother's superimposed, I think it's terrifying.
It's great. Yeah, and then the car comes over it. Like, it
pulling back,
Yeah.
coming back,
It's
from the
such
depths.
a great shot. I
Now,
used to show that in my film class. I still do.
Do you know Oz? Do you know
Oz
Anthony's
Perkins?
Do you know, I
Oz
knew
is great.
Oz and Elvis when they were
They were
much
kids.
younger. I haven't seen either one in years, although
Oz
who's
is
the
filmed.
director?
Oz. They're
You need to
terrific.
see some
And he
of his
was an
stuff.
actor, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm the one who there was some silly zombie movie that he said, I really don't want to do this. And I said, yes, you do. It'll be really fun.
Dead and Breakfast.
Really?
Yes, Dead and Breakfast. That's how long it's
Which
been.
is a decent
I thought you were going
movie.
to say
not
Legally
bad.
Blonde.
No, I've never seen a zombie movie called Legally Blonde.
No.
I'm
He's
kidding.
fucking with you.
I'm
He's messing
joking
with
that
you.
Legally Blonde is a zombie movie, but Oz is in it, is in Legally Blonde. But,
Yes.
but and
One of his
Elvis
bigger
is a really talented musician.
Great musician.
I haven't seen Elvis and Oz, but Tony Perkins' ashes for many, 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 many years, and maybe still, were in a shoebox under Danny Aykroyd and Donna Dixon's bed.
Wow.
What?
That's
What?
They were
How?
Close, they were
How
close
did that
friends.
happen? Wow.
It's a long story.
That's crazy.
Well, so wait. So Hilton called you about
Hilton
Psycho
called-
4.
Hilton called me up and he said, we're going to do Psycho 4 as a movie for television, a cable movie for Showtime. And I said, oh, okay. Like, what? And he said, can you recommend a director? And I said, well, let me think about it. And I'd known Mick for a very long time, and Mick had made... he had made a Critters 2.
Critters 2.
And then I got him I'm the producer, even though I had nothing to do with it, of a TV movie at Disney called Fuzz Bucket.
Yeah.
Which I liked when I was a kid. I've had conversations with Mick about
Yeah, don't
it.
see it again. Anyway, but I got that job for Mick, and he did it. And so I suggested Mick Garris, and Hilton said, well, John, if you say he can do it, I'd hire him, but it's not up to me. It's up to Tony. So I had lunch with Tony Perkins. None of us knew at that time he was ill.
Yeah.
He looked fine, but he was very deeply depressed. And he was a really funny person, Tony Perkins, and witty and smart. And I'd never seen him depressed like this, and it was odd. But he said, so tell me about your friend Nick Barris. And I said, no, his name's Mick Garris, and he's a young guy, and he's really talented, and yada, yada, yada. And he said, but John, my career is down to Norman Bates. And I said, well, hardly. And he was depressed. And he's finally talking. And then he said, would you star in a movie directed by Mick Garris? And I said, well, I'm not an actor, Tony, And he said, no, seriously, would you star in a movie directed by... No, I wouldn't. I don't star in movies. And then finally he said, the upshot was, I'll do the movie, but you have to be in it.
Then there it is.
Wow.
That's why you're in
That's
there.
how it happened.
So you had to do a lunch and a job to get Mick Garris a job.
What was weird was it at Universal Studios in Orlando
Right.
before it opened.
Yeah.
And so I flew to Orlando to do my 2 days' work. It was 160,000 degrees with 1,000,000,000% humidity.
Wow.
And I spent those 2 days in my little, they have the four bangers, and it's like it had an air conditioner, and I was like this with the air conditioner. And then, we're ready for you, John. It's like, okay. And you walk like the 9 steps.
You were like Don Rickles
to the stair. And by the time you got on the stage, you were dripping wet. Anyway, so I did my stuff, and the 3 nights I was there, I was with Tony, because it was weird. He was very unhappy, and I had no idea why, and we learned later why, but Tony Perkins is a very smart and funny guy. He and Stephen Sondheim, the great Stephen Sondheim, were really into puzzles and mysteries. And when I was going to do Clue, they were the people I went to first.
Really?
To write it. And they just wanted too much money. I mean, they wanted an obscene amount of money. And it broke my heart because, did you ever see a really good movie called Last of Sheila?
No,
but they wrote it together.
They wrote it together. Herb Ross. It's wonderful.
It's a Herb Ross. Oh, yeah.
Last of Sheila.
It's a murder mystery in the south of France on a yacht and then on the shore, and it stars James Coburn, Diane Cannon, Raquel Welch, James Mason, Dick Benjamin, Richard Benjamin, and Joan Hackett. And I don't know who else. And Diane Cannon plays Sue Mengers, and they're all playing real people it's a Romana Clef sort of, and it's incredibly bitchy, and the dialogue is great. And it has one of my favorite lines in it, where Richard Benjamin's having a spat with his wife, Joan. I just said her name. What the hell is her name? Joan Hackett.
Yeah.
A great actress. And she says that they're having this argument, and then she says, "Don't patronize me." And he leans out of the bed. He says, "Patronize? Are you sure that's the word you mean?" It's really good. Check it out, Last of Sheila. High bitchery.
Okay.
Did they still get credit for Clue? I thought
No.
But
They didn't do anything. We just had 2 fabulous lunches and laughed my ass off.
Was the flames on the side of my face?
No,
was that improvised or
That
scripted?
was an improv.
I'm sure it was improv.
Okay.
I was not on the set. Jonathan Lynn, I helped cast it, and then Jonathan Lynn, who directed it, is the guy I hired to eventually write it. Jonathan and another guy named Anthony J., good for me, had a brilliant British TV series called Yes, Minister.
Oh, which I've seen a lot. Okay.
Well, they wrote that. That was a brilliant show. And then, yes, Prime Minister. And I offered it to them to write, and Anthony J. didn't want to, and Jonathan did.
And so Jonathan had not directed a feature at that point?
No.
Man, that's a
what was the process of we can discover things on Netflix that are broadcast in the UK, but someone sent you the show?
No, I've made 4 movies in England.
Oh, I guess, okay. So you saw it as a consumer.
And also
in England.
Deborah designed, she had her Hollywood costume show at the Victoria and Albert Museum. Right. I mean, we spend a great deal of time in the UK.
Wow. Before you part, I have to ask about one more cameo since Rob got to ask about Psycho 4. I've professed a lot of strange, awkward love for this movie on air. Freeway 2, Confessions of a Trick Baby. Talk to me.
That's a good movie.
I love
that
movie.
seen that.
He plays the judge.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm very good. In fact, the problem with my performance in that film, it's very brief. I'm the judge.
Okay.
But the problem... What was the name of the director? What's his name?
Oh, my God. He did the first one, too. I got to look it up.
Yeah, he's a very odd...
He's strange.
Deeply strange.
But I'm fascinated by those films. I don't know why. Yeah.
And the problem is people see the movie, and then I have my scene, and the whole rest of the movie they're thinking, what happened to the incredibly charming judge? Where did
it just falls off a cliff.
Yeah, just to pull, the whole movie. Where's the judge?
Matthew Bright was the director.
Matthew Bright. Yeah. Matt Bright is a unique, rather mad guy.
And I don't think he's done much since those films.
Well, I want to see that. He did that movie where Gary Oldman played like a little person.
Yes, played a midget.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Quite a character.
Tiptoes?
Yes.
Tiptoes? Is that it?
Same director.
I'm looking him up right now. I am so fascinated. I mean, the first Freeway movie, the first Freeway movie, it's clearly like this fairy tale that's being told.
Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, it's very exploitive. And then the second one comes up, and it's just... it goes fucking off the rails.
The first one's with Kiefer Sutherland
and Reese Witherspoon.
And it's excellent. It is a really good movie. The second one, when you read the script...
What's the first one called?
Freeway.
Just
Freeway.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
so then he makes a second one.
I didn't realize there was a second.
So the second one ran a lot on Cinemax, which is how I stumbled on it because I thought it was
Natasha Lyonne.
Yes.
And what's his name?
Vincent Gallo plays a nun in drag.
He's the big bad wolf.
Yeah, is the big bad wolf in it. And it's the whole thing is about this women's penitentiary and they're all bulimic, but then they break out. But the girl that she breaks out with, she discovers is a serial killer. And then they kill a whole bunch of people and they're trying to get to Mexico. And I won't keep going.
Did you hear about that in Sherman Oaks 2 weeks ago? That 3 women found dead each time in a bathtub filled with milk and sliced bananas. Did you read about that?
What the fuck?
No, they think
How did you guys miss this?
They think it's the work of a serial killer.
Really?
And that's an MO.
And no Cheerios? Just sliced.
It's a serial killer.
That's not funny.
That's crazy. That is just insanely not funny, and I shouldn't be laughing, but it's the absurdity of it that I'm just like, what the fuck?
Wow. Are the rights available?
I give it to you. Yeah. I give them to you, Couper.
But yeah.
Well, good. All right. There's the cameo thing. The last thing as we wrap up, I mean, do you keep up on modern horror movies? Is there anything that has excited you lately as just a movie fan?
Yeah, no, I've always enjoyed horror films and fantasy films in general. I don't like the word horror, like Karloff and Lee and.
Wow, Couper was talking about that at the beginning, that he doesn't believe in the horror genre.
I don't believe genre in general. I think it's a drama.
Well, I believe in genre, but the word horror, to label it, is a misnomer because to horrify someone is easy. You show them something horrible or horrific, and they're horrified. Horror is not hard. In fact, Fangoria would celebrate grossness. It became like, ew, well, that's not a horror film. Boris Karloff and Chris Lee and Peter Cushing and Vincent Price, all those guys, because they became typed in the genre, they like the word fantasy, or what the French don't have horror films. They have fantastique, fantastic films, or suspense, or even terror films. But horror, it's quite different to terrify someone and horrify someone. You just look at President Trump and you're horrified.
True.
It's not that hard. But to really terrify someone, you have to listen to President Trump. And that's hard.
All right, so you do keep up with modern horror.
Yeah, that's
no, but I don't want to say anything nice about Blumhouse.
You don't have to.
Definitely not.
But I really thought Get Out was, when I saw it, I was just delighted by it. I thought it was terrific, and I think Jordan Peele did an amazing job, and it's especially because these fuckers are so cheap.
So cheap.
I know, right?
You know what? But we never make Barbara Peters shoot a nude scene. Like we let them shoot their. It's Roger Corman without the overbearing.
Violence.
So we say. No, but the truth is that's a great film and really funny and smart, and I really like that film. I also. I enjoy, the thing about monster. I like monsters. Mm-hmm. I'm like Guillermo. I really like monsters. And I'm looking forward to Annihilation because it's clearly a big-time monster movie. Other than Get Out, the last really like horror film, I guess, that I really was impressed and I really went, wow, was the original Swedish Let the Right One In.
Oh, yeah.
Which I just thought was a great movie. I'm told the American version's quite good, too, but I haven't seen it.
I don't like it.
It's good.
The American version's good.
I was very disappointed in it.
Oh, really?
I thought it was just
Rob
lousy.
had issues.
I like it, but I just don't think everyone's like saying, oh, it's so like the book. And I'm like, it's not an adaptation of the book at all.
First of all, it has nothing to do with
nothing at all like the book.
But
so I like it as a movie, but I don't think it's a good adaptation.
Oh, see, I was fucking, it has nothing to do with the book, but I was engaged the whole time.
Really?
And the audience was exploding in the theater.
It was a very successful film, so obviously.
It's a great popcorn movie.
Yeah. But it's not scary.
And you know, The Let the Right One In is based on a book called Let Me In,
which
is spectacular.
Yes.
Except what the filmmaker did, which I agree with,
was
took out all the
pedophiles.
Yeah, all the pedophiles.
Yeah,
Although I have to
very
say,
implied.
if you're a pedophile, you're having a 11-year-old who's going to be 11-year-old forever. It's like, not that we should valorize that, but it's kind of in a weird way makes perverse sense.
When we're off the air,
Oh yeah.
and that's off, remind me to tell you a joke.
And that is the perfect place to end this
And
show.
we'll end there.
Oh, John,
Wait,
thank you.
no, there are lots of good films made all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's sad is most of them you just don't see the light of day.
There's a saturation now, and so it's really
I
hard.
don't think it's saturation. It's just that the what they now call delivery platforms.
Oh, VOD.
Well, just the internet has totally fucked up everything. But other than that, seriously, it's a very different world now. And there's a generation that's perfectly happy watching films on iPads and even their iPhones.
I teach at USC, and I ask my students all the time, like, how did you guys see this movie? And they always say iPhone. Always.
Yeah, that's
And the truth is, motion pictures are meant to be a communal experience. If you want to have a solitary experience, do VR. But a motion picture is... Emotions are contagious. And when you sit in a theater with 400 or 500 people, a scary movie is much more frightening. A funny movie is much funnier. A sad movie is sadder. Whatever's going on, an exciting movie is more exciting. If you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark by yourself on an iPhone, you go, oh, this is fun. But if you see it in a house full of people, it's really fun. I mean, it's just it's meant to be seen big and with good sound, and and the economics of motion picture distribution have become so nuts. I mean, like a movie like Animal House cost $2.3 million. Now, that would be comparable to maybe $10 million. But and they probably spent $4 million in marketing. Now, how much, Couper? What's to open a movie in this country?
$25 million.
At
minimum.
least.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time in France as a kid, and one of the interesting things is you're not allowed to buy television ads for movies in France. And what that does is create this artificial ceiling on how much you can spend to open a movie, because the only thing you can do is outdoor. And I feel like outdoor, especially in a place like Paris,
By the way,
would surface much more movies to you.
The internet has destroyed that.
Oh, right. Okay, so that's that.
But you're right. That's how they
My
controlled it.
Brigadoon upbringing in France is gone.
Also, Cooper's very old.
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Wait, what's your favorite film of the past 2 years? Monster film.
Other than Get Out.
Horror film.
Other than Get Out.
Other than Get Out? God.
Yeah, you too.
I deeply, deeply miss giant monster movies, but I do have to say, I just saw Ritual on Netflix a couple of, I guess it was last week. Has a nice monster at the end.
Is it a giant monster?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So,
Did you see Troll Hunter?
I did. Troll Hunter was great. Now, the other one that whenever I find out somebody's a monster fan, you've seen the film, The Host, right? The Korean
course.
film. Okay, I was going to say, that's like the one when people are like, I miss monster movies. I'm like, you at least have to see that one.
Have you seen Train to
Busan? Yeah, that's one of my
Oh my
favorites.
gosh, yeah. That
That's a great
made
one.
both of our top 10 lists for last year. So that was a great one.
Yeah, I'll go with that one. I can't remember the rest of my top 10.
Well, the zombie movies all kind of blend.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless they do something really unique like Train to Busan, where it's like, oh, okay.
See, I
that's a
didn't
little
think
bit different.
anything in Train to Busan was unique other than the father-daughter story.
But that's what made it for me because,
Yeah.
I've seen zombie films but it was the father-daughter that I cried when I saw it.
I saw the Zack Snyder remake of Dawn of the Dead at the Beverly Connection, which used to have a theater.
Wait a minute.
Which is a very scary place to see that
I
movie.
have to tell you, the first 10 minutes
Yeah.
Oh, incredible. The
are
Sarah
incredible.
Polley, yeah.
Once they get to the mall, it just went in the toilet for me.
The pregnancy is pretty
I still like a lot of it.
It's pretty gory.
But that
yeah.
opening is pretty untoppable.
Yeah.
The opening was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was so good that I was just getting more and more pissed off because I was thinking, what happened to the guy that made the first 10 minutes?
Just the way people feel about Lost Highway 2, right? Right.
Oh my God.
About the judge scene and
actually, I don't,
Freeway 2.
Freeway 2.
Lost Highway 2. Lost Highway 2 is coming soon.
Ooh, Blumhouse.
That's Couper.
Yeah, in my mind.
So what's your favorite one?
Recently,
Yes.
I have to Get Out.
Winston shilling for.
A few years ago, but did you see It Follows?
It follows.
Yeah, it follows. You know what happens when a movie? The best way to see a movie is with zero expectation or low expectations, and then you're pleasantly surprised. I was told It Follows was the second coming, so I was disappointed when I saw it.
I was too. I saw it with Elric Kane, who is our co-host stricken with the plague, and he had built it up to me as like, this is it. This is the movie of the decade. Just forget everything you've ever fucking watched because this is it. And
Which is why I enjoyed it more on the second viewing.
Yeah. Okay.
Without that.
I had that with Blair Witch, where people were saying, wait till you see Blair. So I went.
And then nothing happened.
And I watched Blair Witch. And I'm going, oh, nice snot. What am I watching? And then at the end of the movie, they go into the house or cabin, and then he goes downstairs, and then you see the guy facing the wall, and I literally leaned forward going, okay, now the end. And I was like, what the fuck? What's your favorite?
Train to Busan.
yeah.
Train to Busan. That's Arnie's choice.
What's your favorite?
Yeah.
From Couper.
He's thinking, you know what he's thinking right now?
Which Blumhouse movie to shill for?
I wonder if Jason's listening. Do you know the difference between a brown nose and a
hold on. No. I do know this because you've told it to me recently. Depth perception.
Excellent. I did tell you that. Yes.
Well, to Blumhouse Shill, I do have to say Happy Death Day definitely comes up there just because as horror fans...
I don't see that as a John movie, though, at all.
No.
I thought it was fun.
It's fun.
Oh, okay.
And it reinvents the wheel.
Did you see
for
The
me.
Babysitter on Netflix?
Oh, yeah.
I kind of enjoyed that.
It was like a guilty pleasure for me. Like it wouldn't be something that I would recommend to somebody who's not already like fully engaged in the genre.
Yeah.
But me, myself, I was like, I can eat popcorn and watch this.
Better Watch Out is to me the better version of Babysitter, which also just came out.
What's it called?
It's called Better Watch Out.
It's an Australian scary movie.
Australians make good horror pictures.
Yeah.
That's
angry.
one I let the right. No, what am I saying? Shit. What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, yeah. It's terrific.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And right
New
around
Zealand.
the same time, What We Do in the Shadows came out. Another horror comedy called Housebound came out in New
that's
Zealand.
New Zealand as well.
I thought the premise of Housebound was brilliant, but I don't think they paid it off. I mean, I was so excited the first half hour, and then it didn't get insane enough. It didn't get scary enough.
I love the actress who played the young
She
girl
was great.
Morgana something. Like I could make an entire movie with just her facial expressions, literally. Like her eyebrows were better than anything else in the movie.
See, but I love that movie changes perception after you've seen it and you know what it is. So like on the second viewing or like the poster. Like the poster, you don't know what to make of it. And then when you see the movie, the poster's hilarious. You're like, oh, I get that. I know what's going on here now.
That's a problem. When the ad art that's supposed to get you in the theater makes no sense and is uninteresting until you've seen the picture.
I think that's clever. But maybe, what do I know?
It's bad marketing, though.
Yeah, it's kind of reversed.
You throw everything up at the marketing, and then
see the movie, and this will make sense.
Yeah,
sure.
It's the Herschel Gordon Lewis, whatever's your coolest thing, you put it up.
See the movie, and this will make sense.
There we go.
Nobody does anymore, or all those. No one will be seated. The last 10 minutes of the, do not reveal the
It's
crying
only a
game.
movie.
The crying game was the last time
tried
people
to do
kept
that
a
with
secret.
The Visit. There was a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit of that, like, don't tell anyone what the secret is. in The
Well,
Visit.
it's such like a William Castle, like Herschel Gordon Lewis, like baller marketing move at the time, and they were all stealing from Barnum. But I think that during the 70s, that got really played out where everyone, you couldn't have a movie unless you had a nurse in the lobby and were handing out barf bags.
That was
and
in
then,
the 60s.
Yeah, and then it got kind of spun out.
We had this movie called The Gift, which has a twist ending.
I've seen it.
And it really worked.
That is a really good one,
But you know what it did?
Sam
which was
Raimi movie?
No. Sam
Which
Raimi
I
lent
like
us
that
the title.
movie.
I love The Gift.
Yeah.
Well, also, The Gift, as someone who was 19 when The Gift came out, the original Sam Raimi Gift Katie Holmes.
Did the fiddle scene fuck you up?
Katie Holmes
Because it destroyed me.
Does not wear clothes.
He's talking about naked.
And I remember.
Isn't that interesting to respond?
Oh no! It's the Rorschach. I see the Rorschach test for me is Katie Holmes. But there was a scene in the beginning of the Sam Raimi film where she dies and she's dragged out of the water. Her body is dragged out of the water, and her naked dead body is there. And all my college roommates and I had gone down to the Kendall Square Cinema to see Katie Holmes naked, and we're like, are you kidding me? Do they not know that a dead body version of Katie Holmes does not count?
No, you know what's crazy?
And then there's a flashback. So I was angry from like minute 7 to minute 77.
Wow.
Until I'm like, oh, thank God, there's a flashback at least.
You know what's nuts? I do not even remember that she is naked in this movie.
Yeah, that's very a gendered response.
Yeah, it is. I know. What I remember is the crazy fucking fiddle scene, because they did what was just then starting to become a cool trick to make something scary, which is where you like cut frames out of editing. They did it a lot by the time House on Haunted Hill. Yeah, the skip frame. And so he's moving, but it's like disjointed. And it
I liked House on the remake of House.
I love it.
Bill
That
Malone.
thing scared the crap out of me.
But I also thought it was very witty, and I thought Jeffrey Rush doing Vincent Price was really
and
funny.
the opening at the amusement park with the roller coaster, it was terrific.
And you know whose hands that's in now? Do you?
Oh,
One of these the best of the Blumhouse
the
repertory
Netflix
company,
show, right? The
Mike
Haunting?
Flanagan,
Yes.
is directing all 10 episodes. Have you ever seen Oculus?
He's doing The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, he's doing The Haunting of Hill House. I'm sorry,
not House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
It's all good.
That was my refrigerator
It's all good.
magnet poetry.
That's actually interesting, The Haunting of Hill House and The House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
Shirley Jackson
I feel like there's an Art
versus William
Buchwald
Castle.
lawsuit to be done there.
But I think it has more to do with Professor Harold Hill, which nobody knows what I'm referring to.
No.
But the name sounds
Can we
familiar,
add?
so
Can we
now
add
I'm
Music Man.
crickets?
Oh, dude.
Oh, yeah.
You just should have known the
You're
territory.
from Gary, Indiana. I thought you were from Chicago. Isn't Gary, Indiana, the central city? It's. We talked about this before you came on, John. But one of the great things about working at Blumhouse is that we can put our fanship into action. So it's so. I mean, to be able to talk to you and hear your stories, but also to try to get a movie with you would be so exciting.
Just so you know, he's
The
not a normal
internet-
host on this
Yeah.
show.
I'm not. I'm
This is this nerding
By the way,
out is,
Jordan Peele was on the show. I did not bother to show up. Lee Winnell's on there. I don't show up for those
The
tasks.
reason I'm here is because this guy, Couper, said to me, I have to do this podcast, and I don't know. Would you come, please?
the truth
and what did I
comes
say?
out.
Yes, instantly. And I did it over email because I didn't want to put you on the spot. I wanted you to have time to
Think
come up with
about
an
it.
excuse.
Deny.
I'm accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award in India or whatever.
I can't open my mouth wide enough.
Couper got me really excited because, like, we'd been wanting to have him on the show. We kept thinking, he'd make a great guest. While
And
Ryan's
he's just said
out,
no to me so many times over the
and
years.
he
Thank you,
literally
Couper.
emailed me because I'd run a couple of guests for the night, and he was like, "What about John Landis?" And I was, "Are you kidding?" Of
Will he
course.
say yes this time? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way he got me on is Into the Night and Innocent Blood have both just come out on Blu-ray.
Which he pumped at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, briefly, and he emailed me saying, we'll discuss Innocent Blood. I can't wait to discuss it with you.
He
and
actually-
did you hear him discuss it?
He
didn't
did
know.
before you came into the room. He actually talked about
You
them.
weren't taping before I came in.
No, we did a
we did. We do a
We
pre-show.
do a pre-show.
You come in at the hour mark. There's a part
We
one
have
and a part
ad
two.
breaks.
People listen to you for an hour?
People listen
Yes.
to us
Before
for like
the guests?
3
Believe it or not.
hours. Yeah.
I fast forward through that stuff.
John, we've
Don't
been.
say
He's
that.
lying.
Don't
He's
encourage.
lying right
Don't
now.
encourage.
You have commercials?
Yeah.
Sure.
Then why
course.
am I not being paid?
Yeah, you want to be cut in?
You're
Is-
doing
is-
this out of the
is-
Say that
kindness
you
of your
really
heart.
like fright rags.
Hold on. So Mickey is waving at
Do you
people.
do
and-
fright rags?
We
Sure.
do fright rags.
You like
we
fright
do
rags?
Shudder.
They do.
Shudder?
They do slaughtered lamb.
Yes, they do.
Oh my gosh,
There you
they
go.
do. Yeah.
Have you seen those Thriller socks? They're very cool.
John gave me a pair of Thriller socks, and my kids saw. There's one sock that has Michael Jackson on it, and there's one sock that's the Wolf version, and
Of Michael
Jackson. And so my kid's reaction to the socks was like, oh, cool. Ugh. Like they see the second sock and they're completely freaked out. Why is Daddy wearing a scary thing on his socks?
By the way, his kids are 18 and 40.
I was going to say, my 5-year-old is like way into like Wolfmen, so I would consider showing her Thriller, maybe. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'd give her a few more years.
We're
Did
getting
you ever
close.
hear
Young.
Patton Oswalt does one of his stand-up routines is about his daughter into Wolfman?
No, I've heard his about My Little Pony, which cracks me
you
up
got to
now.
check out that
Okay.
one.
No, my daughter, she just finished Jurassic Park, which she loves.
That's a scary
I know,
movie.
right?
Hold on,
She
what?
had begged because we were watching the Super Bowl and they ran the new trailer and she
Child Protective
loves
Services.
dinosaurs.
is a
And
cry
so
for help.
she kept begging to see it. And I was like, you know what? We'll watch the first one. Because if I remembered correctly in the first one, there wasn't that much gore. It was just a lot of tension.
Severed arm.
There is a
Wayne
severed
Knight.
arm.
How about when, what's his name? Gosh,
No, wait. Oh, the
he's
guy
a
in the
good
toilet.
actor.
Yeah, the guy in the toilet.
The homage to Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
She fucking loved it. And so we won't let her watch anymore.
Martin Ferraro, that's his name.
But then I remembered Harry Potter being scarier as we move along, as they get, older. And so she's seen the first two and she absolutely loves those. And I won't let her go past them until I see a little bit more. But,
Do you want to know what terrified me as a little kid? Not the horror movies, not the Universal stuff. It was Wizard of Oz and Willy Wonka.
The monkeys.
The Wizard of Oz
Yeah.
is
They were
scary.
scary movies as
Yeah.
a little kid.
And Willy Wonka, definitely the boat scene.
But Willy
yeah.
Wonka's seriously weird. The one.
That's one of the great all-time one movie and done. Mel, what's his name? Who directed that movie?
He made
He made documentary films, but he didn't.
he made some other movies.
I'm Googling it, guys.
Oh boy!
What's his name?
One and done.
Mel. He did. I think
Stewart?
He died, Mel Stewart. He died maybe 2 years ago. I think.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure he was just non.
Wizard of Oz 3D is terrific, by the way. That was a conversion.
Terrific. And
Yeah,
they
it's a
really did a
great
good
job.
job. And what's interesting is I really think The Wizard of Oz and The Exorcist, I would say, are the two greatest fantasy films ever because they completely suspend your disbelief. And the thing about The Wizard of Oz that's so interesting is it's so theatrical. You see the painted walls.
Yeah.
They dance up to the end of the stage and that's it, and it's very theatrical. There's no real attempt to make it real, and yet it's totally real.
Yeah.
I think that movie's genius.
Do you think that almost contributes to it? The fact that it feels handmade.
I also think, yes, and I also think, the score, the Yip Harburg lyrics are brilliant. What makes the Hottentot so hot? What puts the ape in apricot? What have they got that I ain't got? I mean, they're brilliant. And also the cast. One of the things people don't talk about, but one of the reasons Hollywood movies are so damn good, those movies from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s are so good, is because there were thousands of performers who had spent years in vaudeville and/or burlesque. Mm-hmm. And if you look at The Wizard of Oz, that entire cast are all vaudevillians, even Judy Gumm, who became Judy Garland. They were all... Margaret Hamilton had been on Broadway. Burt Larway's burlesque. They had all been on stage for years and years and years. So you had this incredibly, now people say, English actors are better because they're trained. Well, in fact, they do have a lot of theatrical experience, and that's kind of lost now. Mm-hmm. Whenever I cast a movie, I would always, my first 30 choices have been dead for 20 years.
When we did this movie Sinister, Ethan Hawke said, there's an actress who you've never heard of, who I can't remember what he did. He did some Broadway play with her, and she's never been in a movie, and her name is Juliet Rylance. Of course, her father is Mark Rylance, and she's incredible in Sinister. And in fact, you're much more scared because you believe the reality of that relationship because you do not carry any foreknowledge of Juliet Rylance into that movie.
That's my major complaint about modern scary movies is that it's really important that in the most ridiculous movie, and even in comedies, you care about the characters. You have some kind of empathy and or sympathy, and or identification with the characters. So it's one thing to make people apprehensive, like, ew, this is going to be so gross, but it's quite another thing to say, oh my God, she's in danger and I care about her. Mm-hmm. And that's very different. That's one of the reasons Hitchcock's movies are brilliant, and that's one of the reasons really good scary movies, the characters are well drawn. That's why so many of the I don't know, what are these movies called? Slasher movies? Where they just, here's a nice teenager, we'll kill them. And you know what I did think was clever, because it was so outrageous? What were those movies where death was the...
Final Destination.
I thought those movies were hysterical.
Yeah. Incredible. But they were like... I love,
who's the bad guy? Death.
Final Destination 2, directed by David Ellis, the late David Ellis, is what's so incredible about it. And this is, I think, true of... James Wan does this incredibly well. But audiences' pattern recognition and the way that those movies play with that. They set up a bunch of details. That's just pure direction,
and
right?
You're just
like
searching.
Noticing that barbecue over there, noticing that plate glass window over there, and wondering how the fuck those two things are going to come together and kill one of those people down there.
Yeah. So that's the antithesis of what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
But to me, no. But John, to me, no, that's not the antithesis, because the hero of that movie is death. And you actually, I think, in a weird way,
he's the hero, not the villain.
Yes, he's the hero. You kind of
at the end,
you were impressed by the cleverness.
But doesn't someone? Nobody survived.
No.
Well, I mean, the whole thing wraps upon itself as a snake, kind of eating its own tail. But technically, if you make it to the next movie, you're usually the first.
The first
to
one,
die.
Devon Sawa dies in number 2.
You never make it to the next one.
But we had this experience on the movie The Gift that was not directed by Sam Raimi, where when we tested it, the ending, which is very dark, which I won't spoil, we were worried that it was just too dark. And when we tested it, the audience complained about the ending, but because it was not dark enough, because they had reoriented their point of view from the good guy to the bad guy. They wanted Joel Edgerton's character to win in a more total way than he won in the movie. But you know what?
That's like Fatal Attraction.
Yeah,
you know that it's a complete ripoff of the Clouseau movie,
Diabolique.
Diabolique, a total ripoff. But at the end, as they shot it,
she won.
He kills her,
and
the police show up because she's notified the police, and they come in with him with his hands around. He's a murderer. Yeah. And she set that up. It was a very clever ending, but the audience was very unsatisfied by it. So what if you see the movie, what happens now is
Ann Archer.
He kills her, but then Ann Archer kills her.
Well, she comes back out of the tub, and then Ann Archer blows her away. We've never reshot an ending of a movie.
Diabolique?
Diabolique. Oh, yeah. Incredible.
Good. Yeah, no, it's great.
Sharon Stone was great in that movie. I'm just kidding. I'm talking about the original. But we had the same thing with Get Out.
Oh yeah, I just watched that alternate ending.
The original ending of Get Out,
and
is exactly
too
like
dark.
It's Allison Williams gives him a smile, and then the red and blues come on, and he goes to jail. And guess what? The same thing happened in 1989 with your friend Josh Goldstein. He was there at that test screening of Fatal Attraction when he was at Sony.
Really?
And that was his very first test screening as a young marketing executive. The Fatal Attraction, test screening that could have been better. But yeah, no, it's hard to come up. It's hard to come up with an ending that can be both true and satisfying.
Very hard, because very often the best ending is the least commercial.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, have you guys seen the French film? I'm sure you have. Cachet, Michael Haneke. So I show that in my college class that I teach.
Have you seen Raw?
Oh my gosh,
God.
love it.
That was too disturbing for me.
That was horrific.
It was for me too, but I still kind of loved it.
Yeah, people left the theater that I saw that in.
I remember when I saw Audition. I told Takesha.
Same thing.
He was in town like a month. I told him. I said, that's one of the most frightened. When that bag moved, I jumped 3 feet.
But when I show Cachet in my class, I always, because it does the same thing where some people will side with the main protagonist that we've been watching from the beginning, and some will side with the person that emerges as kind of could be a victim, but maybe also doing this. And based on which character I found that viewers side with, the ending changes. So what you think is happening at the end, because at the end you literally just see him kind of walk up to a person and then walk away, and I won't say any more so it doesn't ruin the ending for people. But what that conversation is about completely changes based on which one of the characters you side with throughout. And so I point to that and I'm like, that's fucking brilliant, Michael Haneke. But yeah, so... Yeah.
And the movie works in both versions.
It does, completely in both versions. I'm like, yes, it's genius. So, yeah. But... we could probably keep this going for a couple more hours.
Basically, I have to pee so badly that is my cue.
Yeah.
We need to end the show.
So thank you so much for joining us.
That is the most gracious way to deal with the guests.
We have to pee,
I'm terribly
sir.
sorry, but my bladder says it's
John,
time to go.
Thank you for finally saying yes.
I will quickly solve the mystery that we had before. Mel Stewart did go on to direct other films in addition to documentaries. Actually, he went on to direct over 180 films, many of them being made-for-TV movies, including The Triangle Factory Fire, and he also directed the Ripley's Believe It or Not TV show.
The Triangle Factory one is really hilarious.
I have not seen that. So yeah, he went on to do, but...
If I can get a rise out of John,
wait, is that
John
like
Triangle Shirtwaist? Yes.
I was going to say it's the Shirtwaist New York fire where it like leveled the building and all the women got locked. I read the book that I think that is probably based on while I was living in New York because I was staring at it. And,
all those things are non-theatrical, I think.
Yes, but so he did a lot. So yeah.
But
thank you, Google.
He did do another theatrical movie.
Was it This Must Be Belgium?
Yes, if it's Tuesday,
This Must Be Belgium.
Which I
1969.
With Suzanne Plachette and...
I can click the link and tell you. I'm clicking the link, sir.
Has a bunch of good actors.
Yes, Suzanne Plachette, Ian McShane, Mildred Natwick, Murray Hamilton, Sandy Barron.
Murray Hamilton.
Yeah.
Wow.
Marty Ingalls.
Mayor from Jaws.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been awesome.
John, I do mean it sincerely. I mean, your work, I think, has been the most influential for myself and a lot of people.
Especially the new Blu-ray of Innocent Blood.
Yeah.
Which I do.
The new Blu-ray of Innocent Blood
is
an incredible looking movie.
Who's this one put out by?
Warner Archive.
Warner Archives. Excellent.
Put it out, and you can get it right now. And I haven't seen Into the Night, so I'm going to check that one out. It's one of the few films in your filmography I've never seen.
Do you know that?
Shout Select put it
That was my first failure. Because I had made Schlock, which actually did well, and then I made Kentucky Fried Movie, and that did much better.
Which is amazing.
And then I made Animal House, which was a big hit, and then I made The Blues Brothers, and I made Thriller and Trading Places, and then I make Into the Night, and it completely bombed, and I thought, gee, I didn't do anything different. I was really so unprepared for the failure of that movie. It's like, they're not hits all the time.
What came after that one?
Twilight Zone and Three Amigos. Right after that. And Three Amigos, and then what?
Spies Like Us.
Spies Like Us.
Spies Like Us, maybe after that.
Maybe. I don't remember.
Wow.
A lot of stuff.
It's a huge filmography.
You remembered Suzanne Plachette, but
I'm like an idiot savant when it comes to movies.
Right. Other people's movies.
Other people's movies.
My movies I try to forget.
Well,
thank you.
But anyway, Into the Night, I'm very proud of.
Good. I'm going to check it out. But thank you for Thriller.
Thank you so much for joining us
and American
tonight.
Werewolf in London.
And we will be back next week, guys. If you are interested in advertising on Shockwaves, please contact us at shockwaves@blumhouse.com. Thanks.